On today's episode of Kilts and Culture with USAK Kilts, we try Compass Box's The Peat Monster.
Down, 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 down.
Peat Monster!
The history of the Gallic lands is one of struggle, punctuated by moments of sheer brilliance.
Tartan is Scotland's gift to the world, and it is your personal heritage story. Howdy, boys and girls. Welcome to Kilts and Culture. I'm Rocky.
I'm Ian.
That's not Eric.
No.
Today, special treat. We have the Compass Box's The Peat Monster, given to us by
A
Ian.
real... Oh, okay.
Yeah, by one of those people, Ian. Yeah, it's. Why did you purchase this?
Because I'm a sucker for the bottle. It's got a cool monster on it, and I don't know. Monsters are fun.
Fair.
Don't usually buy things that way, but who could say no to that artwork? I haven't had it any yet. I'm nervous. Don't have high hopes, but I have an open mind.
Yes. All right. Let us pour some of this out. I come into it with an... Oh, shoot. I forgot to get my backup scotch. I came into this with an open mind as well.
There's some back there.
I know. So... Ooh, that's very light. It's
Yeah.
very clear.
Yeah. This looks like a space side.
Yeah. All right.
But it's supposed to be a peaty scotch.
Oh,
Naturally.
It's going to be peaty. All right. Mac, come on over. Collect your...
Peat and peat,
Collect
if you will.
yours. And while you are here, what do you have on today there, Mac?
Oh, we've got Stewart of Appin hunting ancient.
Stewart of Appin, hunting ancient.
It's a box plate.
It's a box plate. Ooh, look at... Did you just make that?
Oh, a while ago.
You've had that one for a while. Oh,
This is back in back when I first got my kilt. I had ordered extra material at that time. I finally did some with that extra material.
nice, nice. All right. Mr. Ian, what tartan do you have on today?
I'm wearing the Appalachian Folklore tartan.
Appalachian Folklore. Very nice, very pretty. And I have on the Spark tartan, which is one of our American 250 collection. All right, Mr. Mac, what do we have with the Peat Monster on the nose here?
On the nose, so we obviously have Peat.
That's all it says. Just Peat.
Yeah, just Peat.
Peat. Okay.
Sweet and fruity and grainy.
Grainy.
For like the first time ever, I feel like I'm getting all of that. Usually sometimes these descriptions are very flowery and verbose. I'm like, what is any of that? I'm feeling better about how this is going to go based on the smell.
I'm getting like a wood varnish.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't get that.
Yeah, I'm not getting the fruit at all.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens
I'm
here.
hoping this
Down the
is-
hatch.
Yeah, I'm feeling good about this now. More so than I was before we cracked the bottle.
Okay. So, give it a little sippy sip.
Okay.
So, according to their notes, we have peat, oak, floral, coppery, sweet, smoky bacon with a hint of papaya.
Not getting papaya or bacon, but all those other things made sense to me.
I got the sweet, I got the oak, I got the peat, obviously.
The coppery comes from like that alcoholic burn, I think.
Yeah, copper. What was the other thing before copper you said?
Floral.
Floral, yeah.
I say sweet is at the end. At least for me, sweet is definitely at the end.
I wouldn't describe this as sweet by
No.
any means.
No, not at all. Yeah, that's why I wouldn't even put the word sweet in there.
Yeah.
Dry, if anything. It feels like it's dry.
Yes. Yeah, it's...
This is surprisingly more balanced than I would have guessed. You think Peat Monster, you're thinking like, bam, in your face, Peat. And it is on the peaty side, but for something with that name, more balanced than I would have guessed.
Agreed. Yeah. And the finish is what?
The finish is a lingering sweetness, more peat, floral, roses and violets, sweet spice, and oak.
Okay. Losing
I've
me on the
never-
sweet and the flowers there.
Yeah, I've never eaten roses or violets, so I don't know how they taste. So, sweet, lingering sweetness I'm getting. Like it definitely hangs around.
Yeah.
I could see that.
It's
a
like
couple seconds, like 3, 4, 5 seconds after, I'm starting to understand the sweetness.
I will say it's a weird metallic-y sweetness.
Yes.
Yeah. Like my tongue is salivating with like metal taste.
If we could add some sugar to iodine.
With copper, yes.
Too much.
I put 3 drops in, and it's
Probably put
I
too
mean,
much water in.
it's light in general
Yeah.
to begin with.
It
yeah,
is.
it is. It is very, very light. Okay.
Certainly not out of bounds for Scotch, but usually not.
It's on the lighter end.
The ones
yeah.
we like tend to be darker.
Even not even Isla's, but just for like a Speyside or something like that, it's still pretty light. All right. Open it up with a little bit of water. You got that, Mac?
Yep.
All right. Let's give it a sip with some water.
I don't like it as much with the water in it. I feel like
Metallic-y bit's gone.
Yeah.
100%.
I was about to say, I think the metallic is way up. It's more alcohol burny to me.
I'd say it's definitely more burny
With water or without?
with water. I think it's more burny, but I got the metallic stuff like out of it.
Yeah.
It's got more of a sharper. Sharper's, I don't know, that's the word I'm looking for, but it has more of a spike.
Spiciness, perhaps?
Yeah,
More like a Speyside?
Okay. Interesting.
But I also think it cut down a little bit on the peat too.
A little bit. It still tastes like I'm gargling with dirt.
Yeah, you just got the burned barrel and just licked a charred log.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, Mac, what do you think you rate Peat Monster here?
I think I'm gonna go. Like a 5.8.
Okay.
5.8. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I like it, and I'm not sure if I don't like it. So I'm kind of sticking a little bit more towards the middle.
Okay. Okay. Ian.
I definitely don't love it, but this has exceeded my expectations significantly. I'm going to go 6.0.
Okay. Okay.
I will drink the rest of this bottle. I probably wouldn't buy another.
Okay. I will say that I am more pleased with this than with Smokehead
Okay.
for a gimmicky one where it's like, oh, I'm gonna punch the heck out of this particular flavor profile.
Yeah.
This, I agree, it's a little bit more balanced. It still leans very heavily peated.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 4.8 on this
Okay.
one. It's gimmicky. I'm happy I tried it. I'm happier that I didn't buy it. So that's kind of where I feel with it.
Fair enough.
All right. Yeah, very good. Okay, so boys and girls, as always, down in the comments, put any questions, comments, concerns, anything you have, or anything Kilts and Culture related. While we wait for more comments to come in, I'm going to go to Ian for our very first question.
So I've got a question here from MSL Dalkey. He says, "Hi guys, is it okay to wear a bow tie with a Wallace jacket? Or is it better to wear a long tie toned well with the kilt choice? Thanks, legends."
Legends. Oof.
You trying to suck up to us? Because it's working.
Legend in his own mind, perhaps. So, can you wear a bow tie with a Wallace jacket? So, Wallace jacket, similar in level of formality to like an Argyle jacket and vest. So, not formal, but nice. It's kind of like a suit.
Yeah.
I would say this. In my mind, I feel no. I would
Okay.
not wear a bow tie specifically with a Wallace jacket and vest. From an aspect of a contemporary jacket and vest, contemporary kilt cut jacket and vest. For my money, the bow tie has like an old timey feel to it. Mm-hmm. So I would probably pair that more with an Argyle, which has more of an old timey traditional type feel, versus something more contemporary, sleek, forward looking. I don't feel the bow tie says forward looking to me. Ian, what are your thoughts?
I think I tend to lean in that direction. I'm not a big fan of bow ties to begin with, so I don't know if I'm the best one to answer the question. However, I tend to go necktie with either an Argyle or a contemporary jacket and leave the bow tie to the Prince Charlie or that level of dress. However, if you get the right bow tie, I think it makes a difference. So especially if you're doing I think when we think of the contemporary kilt jacket and vest, the Wallace cut, tend to think Barathea, but we can do it in tweed as well. If you've got tweed and you've got a really interesting, like maybe complementary tweed bow tie, or I know one of our local customers has like a peacock feather bow tie that can work in certain circumstances. Oof. Like something really like naturally fibered as opposed to like a silk bow tie is where I'm going with this.
Right.
The right bow tie can really bring the outfit together.
Tweed bow tie, I would, and a tweed version of the Wallace cut, I'll begrudgingly give you. I wasn't thinking of it through that lens. I was just thinking Black Barathea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it depends on the material of the jacket ultimately. Is there anything wrong with it? No, it's fine. If you want to wear a bow tie with it, sure, have at it.
Yeah.
To me, it just kind of mixes old worldy feel with forward-looking 21st century modern man. Yeah. So, but for a plain or a club tie, or plain four-in-hand necktie, or a club tie, or something like that, or even a tartan tie with a vest on would probably look fine with it.
Yeah.
Now, if he's wearing a vest, a 5-button vest with a bow tie, would I feel differently? I don't know.
I do feel, though, regardless of where you or I come down on this topic, I do feel it's more in the category of preference than, like, firm rule.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Mac, do you have something you want to add?
Oh, there's a very much pro bow tie gentleman on here by the name of David Barr.
The one I mentioned earlier, referenced earlier?
Yeah,
I have angered the pro bow tie. I'm being canceled by bow tie culture.
We all knew you would end like that.
Yeah, pretty much. Fair. All right. Sorry, David Barr. I hate your peacock bow tie. Love you. Hate the bow tie. All right. Mr. Mac, what do we have in the audience there?
I did see a question on the first time around from MadPup1 UK. And he's on a scale of a 0 to 10. How crazy would a person need to be to go back through all the K&C episodes and all Jace's Faces episodes, then record all the Whisky and other samplings ratings in a colorful Excel spreadsheet?
I'd give you a shiny nickel if you did it for us. We've had that question before. I will absolutely say that our tastes in whiskey have evolved over time. So I can't say that, what we've rated things at the beginning are the way that we would rate them now. So
maybe we should go back through them all in one big episode.
One day.
Just one day. One day.
we just have to bring in some sleeping bags because we're not driving home.
It's the Kilts and Culture bender.
I live far enough away that would be a heck of an Uber.
That's fair.
You can make it home.
No, but if you want to do it, great. We could always use the views. All right, Mac, do we have an actual kilt-related question?
Let's see. So we have George says, when it comes to casual kilt wearing, are there rules that you think are okay to bend/break? He's using an example of wearing a lower on the hips or on a different spot on the knee. That's what he's using that as an example.
Sure.
Casual kilting does change the game a little bit.
Yes. Yes, I think there are rules you can bend. I would say bending more in the accessories than with the kilt itself necessarily. Mm-hmm. I probably still I would not bend, break, or even like twist, whatever. Anything you want to do to it. I would not bend the rule of wearing it to the knee, meaning top of knee to middle of the knee. I would not wear it below the knee. To me, that's a hard stop. Maybe if I wanted to only wear a particular kilt casually, I'd get it a little bit shorter to wear a little bit lower. But I don't love that in general because then you're stuck wearing it for just casual.
You do wear your utility kilts lower though, yes.
Yes.
Which is not the same question, but
correct.
Yeah.
What rules would we break though for casual kilt wearing? I would say if I'm wearing it to a Flyers game, and I'm wearing a jersey, I would have it untucked. I would not tuck in a jersey. So that's one rule I'd break. I'd potentially, if you're going to, I'd wear, pockets instead of a sporran. If you're going to somewhere where you're not allowed to have a bag or, there's a bag dimension rule thing. Yep. I would maybe scrunch the kilt hose down if I'm wearing combat boots and wearing it casually.
I'm okay with
Why
skipping.
this was casual. It's casual. Yeah.
I'm skipping hose often if I'm doing really casual. Like, this is relatively casual.
Yeah.
But I am wearing hose. But, like, if it's t-shirt or if it's a hoodie, I'm okay with no hose.
Yeah. Trying to think what other rules I would break. I guess I don't want to call it a rule, and there's not really a rule. This is guidelines.
Yeah.
Preferences. The one that I break often, all the time, unless I am dressed up for an event, is wearing a kilt pin. I almost never wear a kilt pin. Like, I don't have one on right now.
It's not much of a rule either, though, I don't think.
Understood,
I'm not
but
wearing
it's
kilt
more of a
pin either.
convention. It's, for you feel like you're not, fully outfitted.
Yeah.
If I was wearing a tweed jacket and vest, I would have a kilt pin on.
Yeah.
If I'm dressed with a polo, no. What other rules would you, or conventions
I
would
don't
you
think
play
I'm
with?
even as firm as you are on the kilt itself. We do have some customers who do like to wear them low, especially if it's the casual kilt.
Yeah.
I don't do it that way. I tend to wear my kilts where I'm used to wearing my kilts. I don't break that rule, but I don't really see it as a problem.
I see it as a problem insofar as if you're going to wear it low, then if you got it to wear traditional height and it's middle of the knee or top of the knee, and then you want to wear it 2 inches lower, it's 2 inches longer on the bottom. Therefore, that's the rule I wouldn't break. So it's.
I would say if somebody's getting their first kilt and they're not sure what they want to do, I tend to lean into the rule. You should only break the rule if you know what you've got one, you know what you like. Maybe you have one that's, following the rules and it's just not working for you. Your body shape's a little funky, or you perceive it to be a little funky, or you just, you don't feel comfortable with something at your torso and you want to wear it lower. With formal, there are a lot more rules, but casually, and if you know what you want.
Yeah. I tend to agree. It's if you're just starting out, follow the conventions, follow the rules. There's not really rules, but the conventions, and then learn what they are. The thing that I find is kind of telltale sign of someone who's new to wearing kilts is that they don't look as well put together because they're just getting into it. And that's not, I'm not casting shade. I'm not, I'm not trying to be too harsh, but they don't look as well put together because they don't understand the rules. So they're breaking rules kind of willy-nilly without understanding what they're doing and why they're doing it, and doing it with flair. They look more nervous, more pensive. So I'd say try to understand the conventions, try to understand how it is typically worn, and do that. Once you've worn it enough times and you understand the conventions, then you go, okay, well, I don't like kilt pins, so I'm not going to wear a kilt pin. Or I do like flat caps. I'm going to make that part of my outfit. That's what I'm going to wear with my kilts, even though you don't necessarily, flat cap doesn't necessarily go with a kilt. Or, things like that. But you've already established, you know what you're doing, and you're confident and you're comfortable. Then you start playing with the conventions and with the nuances of the outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Indeed. Good question. All right, Ann.
Okay, I've got a question here from Noah Barnett. He says, I aspire to daily kilt wearing, but jeans and a t-shirt are undeniably easier to just throw on in the morning. I would love to hear any tips or tricks you have for kilting up quickly. I need to train my brain to see kilts as an easy option, too.
So, shock collar for when you go to bed.
There you go.
Look, shock therapy.
The answer that, well, actually, let me, I think you and I are going to have the same answer, so I'll let you go first.
Yeah.
And I'll try to add some nuance.
My answer to this is I set it out the night before. And I don't think I'm the type of person to generally set out my outfits the night before. Like if I am going to wear, pants with an outfit. But if there's a lot of decisions you make in the morning. Am I, gonna wash my hair today or not? I know this is something that concerns you quite a bit.
Oh, I lose sleep.
Yeah. Am I trimming my beard? Am I shaving today? Do I have time for this? As part of my morning routine. What am I gonna have for breakfast? Am I gonna make coffee, or am I gonna go, pick up coffee at Wawa or Sheets, if you will? And kilts. There's more going on with a kilt than there is with most pants outfits. That was a weird way to put that.
Very weird.
So not only are you wearing a kilt, I think people are just thinking more about fashion-y type questions with a kilt than they are with their pants. So once you've, I think it might be different too for people who only have one kilt versus people who have a collection.
Yeah.
I've got 20 plus kilts. So I'm like, which kilt do I want to wear today? If I've got to decide that, is the shirt that I want to wear with it clean? If not, what other options do I have? Or do I change the kilt? Okay, I got the shirt, I got the kilt. What hose go with it? Oh, shoot, the hose aren't clean. So now let's go back to start. You know what I mean?
You want to wear brown leathers or black leathers? And
This whole decision paralysis thing can happen before you've even had your coffee, and it's a nightmare. So putting out the outfit the night before, like, clears all those decisions off your plate in the morning and makes it easier to go. That's to say you can't change your mind in the morning if you are feeling some kind of way. There's times when I've set out my great kilt the night before planning on doing that, and then I woke up and I'm like, I'm feeling a little groggy, a little sore. That's not happening, and I quickly grab something else. But I'm only going to do that if I know what I want to do, because I just woke up and I'm feeling a rugby shirt and a casual kilt today.
Yeah, kilts are much more involved than blue jeans and a black shirt. So it is a lot more questions to answer that early in the day. I 100% agree with you on that. So yeah, I would lay it out even for the great kilt. If you have room. Great kilt is probably the most daunting of the kilts to get dressed in the morning. So not only lay it out that you're going to wear it, but I would actually pleat it up, throw the belt underneath it, or slide the belt underneath it, and get it ready so that in the morning, as long as your knees and arthritis don't act up and you're okay crawling around on the floor, and you have room to spread it out, then I would do that for the great kilt the night before. But yeah, there's a lot of nuance in kilts, and guys wearing kilts tend to want to look good. You feel like, I need to represent this well. I need to look good. I need to make sure that these things match. Or I want to look good today because I'm wearing the kilt. You're going to stand a little taller. You're going to, back's going to, straighten up. Chest is going to puff out a little bit. So you want to make sure you're representing your heritage and the kilt well versus throwing on a pair of sweatpants and a t-shirt. You don't really care what you look like because people are going to be looking at you.
Yeah.
So from that angle, I would say, yes, it's make the decisions the night before, make sure it's all ready, minimize the amount of thinking you have to do at all times, but especially in the morning pre-coffee, and then just, boom, you go into autopilot. Okay, I've already done this. And you almost feel committed if you do it the night before. It's like if it's all laid out and you're like, I don't know. Then you're like, well, then I wasted that time last night. So, all right, I'll put it on. So you kind of talk yourself into it a little bit. So yeah, I'd say just making sure you get all the decisions out of the way and put it on or put it out the night before is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Absolutely. All right, Mr. Mack.
So we have a question from Joe here.
Hey, Joe.
He was going to email this into the length, kind of trimming it down a little bit for us, getting more to the meat of what he's asking here. He's like, what decisions go into selecting which pivot to use as a gig line to the center of the front apron, and if it pleats to the sett, what about the planning for the back of the kilt as well?
Yeah.
And he brings out some scenarios of this tartan versus this titan where you have like stored hunting where you have two potential lines, and then how does it also translate to stuff that's asymmetrical?
I was literally just about to say that.
Yeah.
The which line, Mac? How do you make the decision which line you put center apron? Is it let's say Royal Stewart? Do you do the red blank kind of pivot or a wide field of red pivot, or do you do the white stripe, the dominant?
I always like the white stripe. I always like to have a dead center point, something going down that front apron.
So the dominant one dead center.
But notably, both are fair game.
Yes. And there's times where the way the mill may have cut the cloth, it leads us to one versus the other, because I don't want to waste 5 inches or 10 inches of cloth. If I move it over to this other one, I use up more cloth, and it's more beneficial to make sure I have the amount of pleats in and getting the front apron a particular way.
Yeah.
Right.
And for some tartans, I'm thinking McNeil of Barra as an example, both pivots are pretty dominant. You've got a yellow stripe on one and a white on the other. I probably lean towards the white, but it's 55-45, not 80-20 like it might be for Stewart Royal.
Yeah. The biggest, the thing I don't quite lose sleep over, but it's close for someone who's very, very nitpicky, are asymmetrical tartans. Specifically, forget Stewart hunting, Buchanan.
That was the other one he brought up.
That's oh, good God, because Buchanan has a red section with a white stripe, and it has a bold yellow section next to it, and then there's like a dark green. So
it's right over your shoulder too.
Yeah, that's Macmillan.
Oh,
over here?
No, this side.
Oh, it's behind my head.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
Now,
So
now you can see it. Okay. Buchanan is one that I have a Buchanan weathered kilt, and I pleated it to the gray section between the yellow and the red. I don't think I would do it again were I to travel back in time. I don't love how it came out, and I'm always feeling like it's either an inch this way or an inch that way.
But is there anything that would have made you feel better? Would you have had this dilemma regardless of what you did?
I probably would have had the dilemma. No, I would have had a slightly different dilemma. It would have been I probably would have picked the white stripe in the red, and then said, okay, boom, that's center. But then I would have looked at it and went like, but that yellow to the left of it or to the right of it, depending on which side of the bolt.
In that specific case, I either like between the red and the yellow, or I like the green section, because then if you've got the green section down the middle, then you've got the block of red and yellow on either side, red and yellow on either side, and that it kind of, you're doing what feels the most symmetrical. It's not symmetrical, but you're trying to find what feels that way.
Yeah, Mac.
But I'll say then I'll also then give you this example. We've seen this with Mackenzie kilts, where Mackenzie's pleated a lot of times pleated to the white stripe, where they'll center a white stripe on the front apron, even though it can be centered on that red stripe.
No. We have a kilt in the store.
Yes, I know.
I won't say who made it, but we have a kilt in the store that I got a twitch in my eye every time I walk past it. It is a military kilt pleated to the white stripe in the back in Mackenzie. But Mackenzie is like Blackwatch. It's what's called an ABAC tartan, where A repeats and the B and the C are the things that are different. In the Mackenzie tartan, the A is the white stripe. So there's a B, which is the pivot, and there's a C, which is the pivot. So a red stripe in one and a blank or a navy section in the other.
So it does naturally create a little bit of a dilemma.
Correct. So the problem that I have is you're taking a symmetrical tartan that is Mackenzie, and you're making it asymmetrical on the front apron, where the center should be one of the pivots. It should either be the red stripe or the navy section, not the white stripe. And someone made it the white stripe. It drives me crazy. I'll save explicatives for later.
And that's not the only one. I've seen more that are like that too. So that's.
What are you going to anger me with now, Mac?
No, thank you to all of that.
So, so when we're looking at kind of leaning back towards the question, when we're looking at a piece of cloth on the table and you're judging how is that center line picked? Is it, I know how I do it, which is the same way you do it. You're looking, let's say, equal distance for either way. Which do you choose over the other?
I'm going to give you a bit of nuance to it. Okay. So, if a tartan, let's say it's a 10-inch set, okay? So 10 inches or 9 inches, something reasonably big, and you have a smaller person, and if you pick a dominant pivot white stripe as the center of the apron, if that white stripe will not occur again on the apron,
that's a good point.
Then I would go with the other pivot, so that way 10 inches apart, you have two white stripes running down essentially the front of the legs, and the center is like the blank section, versus what I have on here, which is the white stripe here, because it occurs two other times on the front apron. If the white stripes were out here beyond the edges of the apron, then I would do the blank section or the gray section dead center, and I would actually do the white stripes here that go down the front of my hams.
So it's something like Aberdeen,
quads,
where you have much larger set. I think that definitely comes into play there. You try to at least maximize the amount of colors that you're seeing.
Aberdeen is such a mess, though it doesn't matter.
Oh, it is. I'm not arguing with you on that.
Exactly what I was going to say. But a large set like Aberdeen, yes, with that 14 or 17 inches.
Or you've got more of an empty space as the other pivot.
Yeah, indeed.
So then figuring out your back.
Figuring out the back, frankly, doesn't matter as long as it's a lot. Some people will say, I want it to be the exact same as the front apron. Fine. Typically, what I've found, and see if you think the same thing, what I found is it tends to be like a little bit like the deeper pleat is too deep if you do that one, so I tend to go the other.
Depends on the size of the person, though.
Yeah.
I'll say from what I'm seeing over in production on a typical basis is on an 8-yarder it doesn't necessarily really matter. We do some occasionally get either the deep pleat can sometimes be bigger, sometimes can be a little bit smaller, and we're finagling with that a little bit. But on an 8-yarder we're fine there. But and we can get them to match. On a 5-yarder it's almost opposite. Whatever we pleat as the center of the front apron,
It's almost going to be
the opposite end pivot on the other side.
Right. So then would you actually go and worry about the splice first to maximize the cloth that you're using and get the splice as minimal wastage as possible? Pick the pivot that's closest to the splice, and then work backwards to figure out which stripe you're going to center on the front apron.
Start with that, and then see if you have a problem with the depth of your reverse deep pleat, and then adjust if you need to.
Yeah, because then you can finagle that front apron a little bit either way.
I do want to pause here and speak directly to a specific segment of our audience, and that is the overthinkers. This is not something worth overthinking, because while I usually try to set it up so the back is the same as the front if I can, and that's my starting assumption, and then adjust if need be. I'd rather, though, not mess with the depth of the deep pleat. Having a massively too big deep pleat or a way too shallow deep pleat is a more annoying problem than not having it be the same on the front and the back.
Spoken like a man who has to answer the phone and talk to customers who are complaining about something.
Where we do actually run into trouble with this, though, is when it's for a pipe band. And they have explicitly stated they want all the kilts to match.
Yeah.
So for Bobby, who's got a 54-inch waist, and it worked out fine, but you've got Stevie, who's got a 34-inch waist, and just the whole math. Sometimes you just got to get stuck with either a too deep or a too shallow.
Or you lose the pleat in the kilt, to get the back where it needs to be. Yeah. So, and that's yes, pipe bands are really where it matters, and that's we actually have folders, computer folders of picture of the front, picture of the back of the kilt, so we know exactly what they're doing.
Now.
We look at bagpipe bands, Facebook pages or social media to see if we can see pictures of the back of the kilts to try to match it up. And the problem is a lot of times either they have not specified or other kilt makers have done it kind of either way, and then you're stuck with, well,
or
what
a
do we
band
want
that's
to do?
gone through a cycle of different kilt makers.
That's fair as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I 100% agree. Don't overthink it. It's still the same tartan. It's still the front apron. It's still, a sporran still covers a third the front apron. You're still fine. It's all good. Just enjoy the kilt you have. Don't think it's lesser or more because there's a stripe centered or the stripes are further apart or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The stripe in the center of the back isn't really that critical.
No. There's an even easier way to do this. You buy 2 kilts. It's fine. You get one pleated one way, the other pleated. Actually, buy 4. One front apron, dead stripe center, and then the other one there, then the back. You're fine. And then actually a 5th kilt to have one pleated to the stripe.
This is the Tom Morgan approach.
You'll have plenty of options.
Yes.
And my child's college account. Thank you.
Alternative answer is trust your kilt maker.
Yes. Not if it's Ian, though. All right. Ian, what do we got?
Yes. So, from Christopher Scholl. What do you think about knitting your own kilt hose? Do knitting machines allow beginners to skill up quickly?
Do knitting machines, are we talking AI robots?
Hi, honey, I'm home.
Are we talking like Terminator?
Hasta la vista, baby.
No, probably not.
Probably not.
No. Okay. Do knitting machines allow you to skill up quickly? Sure. I don't own a knitting machine, and I'm not a knitter.
Neither am I.
But I am pro trying crafty things like knitting your own hose. I know that when I talk about like House of Cheviot or any of the kilt hose companies that are making kilt hose in Scotland, they are using not machines as in they're using machines as in computerized machines to knit things. So knitting in the round circular knitting machines, actually computerized, or flatbed knitting machines, and then there's also 1920s mechanized crank style knitting machine where it's just a bunch of gears and little pins poking out everywhere. So let's assume you're not going to invest in a $20,000, Yokoshima knitting machine, flatbed knitting machine.
But if you do, talk to us about potentially being one of our suppliers.
That said, if you're going to if you have a hand crank knitting machine, there's like a weirdly active, or not weirdly, but it's an active hand crank knitting machine, community. I know Steve Ashton, who used to own Freedom Kilts, he owns X Marks the Scott. He at least used to knit his own hose using the crank machines, and back in like 2012, 2015, he got like really, really into it. So there's obviously passions for this kind of thing. What I would say is, do something and build skill sets that are being lost. It's just fun to do different stuff and be able to do and create different things that don't exist. There are plenty of ribbed kilt hose that exist in the world. There aren't enough cable knit kilt hose. Or if you see an old McKeon print from the 1860s, you said like, hey, that guy has, stag heads in diamond patterns on the kilt hose in this particular painting. I want to make those for myself. Awesome. Do it. Do cool stuff like that. Anytime you get into like the upper echelons of geekdom, where there's things that are so nuanced, a niche and a niche and a niche, that it's difficult to find any kind of manufacturer to do it. Doing it yourself is an awesome option. So I would always encourage people to do those kind of projects themselves and learn how any kind of trade like that. Ian.
What he said.
All of that.
I'm not a knitter. I don't know much about it. It is cool to be able to get things, though, that aren't going to be commercially available. The thing you described with the stags and that
it's a thing that actually exists, and I want it, but I'm not going to take the time to knit it.
And the commercial kilt hose companies are probably not going to do it.
No.
And if they did, they'd be $400 hose probably.
Yeah. And the other thing that I will say that, to that point, the other thing that I would say in learning a craft, learning a skill, learning how to do something like that, and understanding how much time it takes to knit things, you suddenly get a very, very real world understanding of why things cost as much as they do. Mm-hmm. When you look at a pair, two skeins of yarn for a pair of kilt hose or something, and you realize it took you 27 hours all in to knit this pair of socks. What is your time worth? What was the raw materials? Yada, yada, yada. What was the skill and the labor worth for you, and the knowledge worth for you to be able to do this? Now, all of a sudden, $400 for a pair of socks doesn't seem out of the question. Yeah. So you start understanding why things cost the way they do, or how much they do. And in a world of fast fashion where we expect things immediately and to cost, $10 for a six pack of socks, or a pack of underwear, you start to go like, maybe these things should cost more than this. People's time is worth money. So yeah, it's an interesting one to kind of reflect on and give you a different view of the world. So yeah, that's my little spiel for that.
Yeah,
nice. Mr. Mack.
All right. So we have Randy asking. Randy's looks from the sounds of it, going to Celtic Classic.
Excellent. See you there.
He's asking, should I look for a hotel room now? And are there any do's and don'ts heading into Classic?
Yes, look for a hotel room a few months ago. This particular year, I believe it's homecoming at Moravian and Lehigh at the same weekend as Celtic Classic. So hotels are going to be a premium. Yeah. Consider getting a hotel a little bit outside the city. If you need to, And what was his other question? I got hung up on
what are do's and don'ts?
Do's and don'ts.
Do's and don'ts.
Don't wear your kilt backwards.
Don't wear your kilt backwards. Do buy a kilt from us. No, I would say when you're, and I'll broaden it to all festivals. When you are going to a festival, a heritage festival, it doesn't even have to be a kilt or Celtic festival. Anytime you're going to a big festival, I'm all for pre-gaming a little bit, having a sandwich out in the car, and gathering a group of friends, just outside and kind of, hanging out, extending the beginning of the experience. We are from Philly. We tailgate with the best of them. So, that said, I would also say, support the festival.
Yeah.
Period. That's the number one freaking thing. Now, go in and listen to music. Enjoy yourself. Have a great time. But budget for it. Don't spend all of your budget on the hotel or the whiskey you're going to bring to the thing. I would say buy things there. Support the festival itself. Support if they have a t-shirt stand, buy a t-shirt. If the musicians are there, have CDs for sale, buy a CD if you like the band. Even if you don't have a CD player, give it to somebody else. Share the experience. If there are merchants there, spend a bit of money. Not only just buying the beer from the festival as well, but buy some of the food. Spend money there. The only way for festivals to continue to exist is when people support them and people spend money. So make sure you are supporting them not only with your presence and telling people about it, but also with your dollars and making sure that they are making money or at least covering expenses to be able to do it again. So that's the number one freaking thing I would do. Ian.
Festivals in general have been struggling in the 2020s.
Yeah.
Sponsorships have been drying up for a lot of them. Particularly on the West Coast. I'm not sure why there's a difference. I've been hearing about a lot of West Coast festivals.
East Coast as well. But
They've been struggling too, but I think West Coast has been full on canceling festivals at a rate we're not seeing on the East Coast. With the hopes of resuming next year, but it's been a tough go. I know like big alcohol sponsorships have dried up a little bit. All of what Rocky said.
Yeah. And in a world of virtual experiences and social media, get out and do real shit.
Yeah.
Get out in the world, do things, experience things, be part of it.
Post about it.
Yeah, post it. Yeah, if you're gonna have the virtual experience of walking around looking at a concert behind your phone, live stream. Well, I don't know if you're allowed to live stream it. They may frown upon that. But walk around the festival and live stream it. Tell your friends to get down there. Get other people out of their homes into the real world and do things in person. The more disconnected we are, and this isn't meant to sound like a political rant, but it's kind of about to. The more we are disconnected and live in our own bubbles and believe our own BS and drink our own Kool-Aid, the more problems and divisions we have. Get out in the real world, talk to other people, experience different things, and get out amongst your fellow humans. Don't just sit in your room in a basement, angrily typing as a keyboard warrior. Get out in the world and do stuff.
Rager Munson, 2028. In terms of practical, do's and don'ts.
There's a real question here.
I would say check on the weather. I know Celtic Classic specifically is at the end of September, and in southeastern Pennsylvania, the weather can vary. It can be chilly and like sweater or tweed weather, or it can be 95 and boiling. So don't overthink. I'm going back to that theme again now and try to figure out your outfit now. No point. You don't know what the weather's going to be like. But in the week leading up to, make sure you check, make sure you're dressed appropriately. Maybe check the schedule ahead of time so you're not like 3/4 of the way through the day and realize, oh man, I really wish I saw that thing that happened an hour ago. So that you can plan for the things you don't want to miss. Yeah,
bands you don't want to miss, things like that. Absolutely. Plan out your day.
Special like sporting, Highland Games event that you don't want to miss, or some kind of demonstration.
Yeah, and I would also say even Celtic Fling at the Ren Fair or Celtic Classic, where there's an event where there's multiple stages. A lot of times bands will either stay on the same stage and just repeat, every couple hours, or there's one band over here that's playing the same time as a band over there, and you want to see both of them. Okay, fine. You can only pick one, obviously.
Yeah.
Time travel and space travel is not a thing yet, but...
Not with that attitude.
Exactly. But if this band and this band go on, but this band is also here later in the day and going on, great. See this band first and that one second. Plan out your day. 100% agree with that. I would also say make sure that you take a lap around to see all of the food that they have before you commit to the one thing that you want. There's been a few times where I've gone to a festival and been like, I'm going to have this thing because I'm hungry right now. And then 10 minutes later, you're walking down the row eating your thing and you're just like, I didn't know they had turkey legs. I didn't know they had haggis. And that's the thing that you actually wanted while you were there.
Yeah.
So I'd give it a full lap around. Same thing with vendors. So if you're like, I want to buy a kilt, or I want to buy a a whiskey stone to carry a rocker on the festival the whole time, which is, I don't know why it's a freaking thing. It's the dumbest freaking product ever. Or I want to buy a t-shirt, or I want to buy this. I would do a full lap around, get there early, do a full lap around before you commit to the thing or things you want to buy, especially if you're on a budget.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you're buying the exact things you want. Jewelry, there's a lot of jewelry vendors at festivals, and a lot of them are individual artisans. So sometimes you'll be like, ooh, this is a really, really neat piece with a piece of topaz on it. It has a looking with brooch. Oh, that's the one that I want for my wife. Great. Then, give it a lap and, yeah. Mac, you look like you want to jump in.
Yeah, speaking of our customer appreciation party, isn't there a video or a documentary that we might be dropping that might talk about this topic?
Maybe. Yes. For those watching now or later or whenever, if it's late, which is way later, sorry, you're too late. You missed it. But there'll be a video that'll come out, so you'll be able to click right over there somewhere. I don't know. Whatever. So anyway, yes. Not making much sense. On June 28th, 2025, we are having a customer appreciation party and movie premiere party here at USAK Kilts. So, if you're in the area, stop out to USAK Kilts on June 28th. Was it 3 p.m. to 7 p.m.? Something like that? Somewhere around there. We're going to have discounts in-store only. We are going to have a little bit of food, a little drinky drink, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic. And at, I think, 5:30 that day, we are planning to premiere a little sneak peek not behind the scenes, but an early preview of our movie, or mini documentary, it's about a half hour long, which details essentially Celtic festivals. I'm not going to release the name yet because we haven't finalized on the name yet, but stop out, be here, or be square, or something. Yes.
Indeed.
All
Just
right.
come hang out with a bunch of other people who wear kilts.
Yes, that too.
Make some friends.
Yes. Ian.
So I'd say it's about time for the question of the day.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Well,
this is...
ask this one, then we'll announce its question of the day. Don't put that on yet. Jordan, what are you doing?
So this question that is only the question for this moment, and definitely not for the day,
No, not at all.
it's from a personal friend of mine, Aaron Rupert, who says, for those that don't have Scottish heritage, what most commonly brings people to have interest in kilts?
Okay, so we've answered this generally speaking before. We've never gone into the depths of what makes people want to wear a kilt if they don't have Scottish heritage. So, for me, for the most part, I do not. I'm more a little bit of English, a little bit of Irish, and mostly German. So, for me, it was just kind of it started out. It's blossomed well beyond this, but it started out more as the individual kind of thing. It's I want to do what I want to do. I want to wear what I want to wear, and no one is going to stop me. And this looks fun. Let's try this. So that's kind of where I started wearing kilts, was listening to Dropkick Murphys and Flogging Mollies and traditional Irish music as well, like the Chieftains and the Wolf Tones and things like that. The Pogues and Shane MacGowan, exactly. So a lot of, well, they're not really traditional. They're more 80s rock Irish, but yeah. Anyway, yes, it started out from that place, appreciating the music, loving the culture, and just wanting to get kind of wrapped up in it, and then just kind of like, that seems like a fun thing. I think I want to do something like that. And the confidence that it takes to wear it, it was kind of a challenge to myself at the time of, do I got the guts? Will I actually do it? Or am I going to chicken out? So that's kind of how I came to wearing it, and I think that's a lot of people. Well, I don't know if it's a lot of people's, but I think it's a certain segment of the audience's reasoning for it. Ian?
I'm probably pretty similar to you. I do have Scottish heritage, and that was part of what brought me to it. My wedding was my first time wearing a kilt, so the combination of the heritage and the wedding was a good excuse to get in it for the first time. But the reason it became more than that was close to what you. Like, I could have just worn it for my wedding, and then maybe once or twice a year going forward from there. And that is plenty of people's experience still. But I just like doing something different. I don't like being that regular kind of guy. I have long hair, unlike most men my age, even who can grow long hair. So wearing a kilt is just an opportunity to express myself, so it is a bit fashiony, and it is just sometimes just a straight fashion choice to start it for some people.
Or a gay fashion choice.
Sure. Not what I meant there, but...
No, but that's kind of where I was going to go next, was, a fashion choice as well. It's something that it's for some
Yeah.
people, it just speaks to them as like, wow, that's different than regular fashion. It's something I want to, play around with and do.
See
and
if I look good in it.
yeah, exactly. Figure it out and see what it's all about.
Some people start with a utility kilt because that's more the route they go, but then they drift into the more traditional style.
Oh yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
I would say a lot of people go for the utility kilt almost because to me it's almost counterintuitive, but they think like I feel safer. I'm a
Yeah.
guy wearing a skirt. I don't want to wear, like the tartan thing feels too weird, or I don't want to appropriate,
Yeah, I think
Scottish culture.
some people are nervous about they're not allowed to wear certain
Yeah.
tartans.
Yeah.
More nervous than they should be.
Yeah,
admittedly.
so like, oh, okay, I'll wear a solid color one.
Yeah.
And then eventually, after wearing it a few times, they're like, you know what? There's something about those tartans. It feels more kilt-like than a solid color one. I'm going to try one
Yeah.
of those.
Or maybe they've learned a little bit more and they've discovered, oh, there are universal tartans I can wear.
Yeah, or there's
the
other
Appalachian
colors than black.
Yeah. I know there's plenty of customers we work with, who prior to wearing kilts wore nothing but black. So
Yeah. Well, actually, the thing that I find most amusing is when husbands come in with their wives, and the guy goes in to try on a kilt or whatever, and the wife says, he has never cared about any clothes or any fashion before. I don't know what it is about kilts that got this man to give a crap about his appearance.
like
But
color
this is
coordination
crazy.
and all
Yes.
that stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just something that's
It's like a blossoming that the wives and girlfriends get to observe.
yeah. It's weird to them, but for the guy, it's just like, yeah, well, I finally care about this. This is cool. This is neat. I just want to do this. So yeah, Mac, do you have any insight here on what drives someone to want to wear a kilt other than heritage? No, he looks at you.
I have a really smart ass answer, but I'll keep that internal.
Okay.
I mean, for me, it was like, I wanted to get one, but the girl I was chasing at the time also wanted me to get one, so
Yeah.
that kind of helped push the envelope a little bit more.
That does it.
So,
And you worked for us.
well, not at that time.
Did you
Not
get
yet.
one before you started working here?
I did.
Okay.
That was the other part of this material.
Yeah. No, I knew that you. I forgot whether you introduced yourself in the shop because of Brittany at the time. But I forgot that you got a kilt before working for us.
No, yeah, that was the one I got before.
Okay.
So out of the gate, 5-yarder.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice.
Me too. My first one was a 5-yarder.
Oh, I feel all warm and fuzzy. You guys have been here forever.
You sucked us in.
I'm going to stop. Very good.
Keep
All right.
those smart ass comments internal.
Indeed. All right. Now that we're at the midway part of the show, boys and girls, we are ready for our Kilt Ambassador of the Month.
So what do you do if you've studied a musical instrument basically your entire life? Well, you go into business for yourself, of course. Our ambassador Tom Moore did exactly that. Tom lives in Westmont, New Jersey with his wife Mariella. Tom's career path led him through the world of publishing until in 2016, he decided to drop out of the rat race and become a full-time bagpiper and bagpipe teacher, establishing his personal business, The Happy Bagpiper, LLC. This was the end result of a 50-plus year relationship with the pipes. He says, I've been in love with the great Highland bagpipe since I first heard its sound as a very small child, long before I had a practice chanter and started taking lessons. Tom's father bought him that practice chanter when he was only 6 years old. And not too long after that, Tom was walking himself around the corner once a week for lessons with a former Scottish regimental piper and immigrant named William Ray. He says, I was soon playing with both the Cameron Highlanders of Philadelphia and the Ulster Scottish Pipe Band of Philadelphia, so I got both performance and competition experience. In my teenage years, I competed as a solo piper, but I mostly enjoyed playing with the bands. They became my people, my second families. So now it's been nearly 57 years since Tom had his first lesson, and he has simply never fallen out of love with the instrument. It's definitely the longest love affair of his life, as he puts it. And he feels that every time he plays, he's sharing some of the very best aspects of his Celtic heritage with other people. So, now Tom is an accomplished Highland bagpiper and Highland bagpipe teacher full-time. And he's really living life on his own terms and committing that life to the instrument he loves. So, with all those years under his belt, he's definitely got some sage wisdom to share. If you want to learn the bagpipes, here's what Tom says you should do. Number 1, don't buy anything. Tom has seen many a student come to him with a practice chanter or even a complete set of pipes that they bought off of Amazon or eBay. And more often than not, these items are really poorly made or made of inferior materials, and they're just basically unplayable. So what should you do first? Well, find a teacher. Or alternately, find a player who can then refer you to their teacher. Connecting with a local pipe band is also a solid move. In fact, most of them offer some sort of a teaching component to help new members along. And finally, embrace the discipline. If you truly want to be a good bagpiper, you'll need to devote regular, disciplined practice and playing time to the instrument. Remember, you'll be on the practice chanter itself for at least a year, so you got to embrace that process. Once you make the transition to the full bagpipe, be patient with yourself and with the instrument. Just figuring out the mechanics of the pipes can take many months in and of itself. And when you hit those moments of frustration, and Tom warns that there will be many, remind yourself that this is an amazing instrument, really unique, and with a very cool culture and history that goes with it. So I guess I'll round this out with a shameless plug for Tom. If you're interested in what he does, or if you want to get to know him, check out happybagpiper.com, and you can find him on social media as well. Thanks, Tom. Keep up the great work.
Here's to our good friend Tom. Very, very nice guy, good customer, and a spectacular bagpiper, and a snappy dresser.
I'm very happy.
Yes, he is. He is. And he tags us and House Achievia in more posts than I care to admit to. Yes. So, all right,
I
Mr.
tag
Mac.
USA Kilts in a lot of posts, too.
Not nearly as many as Tom,
Fair
trust
enough.
me.
Fair enough.
That man's a machine. He's got a lot. If you're on Instagram, follow him. He does post every freaking day. He's social media savvy. Yes.
A sensation, if you will.
Yes. A sensation. Yes. And sensational. All right, Mac.
All right, so we have one from Jennifer. Is there an inside front pocket on a kilt? She remembers one being there when she was a snare drummer on the drum line in a bagpipe band. So she's questioning on, is that a normal thing, or is it something that...
Inside front pocket, like
I think
sport kilt, but
I'm wondering if it's not...
pocket.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where I was thinking with this.
Yeah. There's a brand called Sport Kilt. They do a little pocket, like kind of between the two aprons up top, which I think is outside of like just your ID and maybe a few bills. That's like dollar bills, not bills as in bills you have to pay.
Or, you know, if that's what you carry around.
Sure.
Party on,
why
Wayne.
not remind yourself? But outside of that, I wouldn't carry much up there. If she's talking about what we call the crotch pocket, which, you know, you lift up the front apron and a small pocket sewn towards the bottom center of the under apron, that can be done. Yeah,
It's definitely not common, though.
yeah.
The way that question sounded worded.
No, it
never,
is not standard.
It's never something we do standard.
No, it's kilt companies can do it, sure, especially when you're dealing with the individual kilt makers or a company that actually makes their kilts. I remember when I was making kilts for Scruffy, my buddy from Dropkick Murphys. He wanted a tin whistle pocket underneath his front apron, so I had down towards the bottom, long enough pockets or little slits, not slits, but little areas for his D whistle as well as his C whistles and that kind of thing, so he can carry them without having to have them on stage. So yeah, there's all kind of ways to customize things on kilts, especially if you're handy with a needle and thread. Sure, have at it.
Yeah.
Ian, any thoughts?
It's something that we can do. We don't make it standard. You have to reach out to us. Don't have much more to say on that, though.
Yeah, I didn't know if this was something like, especially with drummers, maybe having an extra set of sticks. I know they would be much longer than a whistle, so you'd have to maybe in an angle or something where it'd be a little bit more.
The fact that she's in a pipe band is interesting to me because oftentimes relative inexpensive horsehair sporrans that pipe bands get have no functional pouch for your phone, for your keys or whatever, just because the band didn't want to spend more money to have it functional.
Oh, so it's also traditional. It's the actual pouch thing is more new than the old ones, which just have essentially a credit card flap on the back.
Yeah. So maybe the pocket on the kilts was a way to accommodate not having room to put your stuff.
Yeah, that's fair as well.
So it might have been standard for however the band made their arrangements with whatever kilt maker they used.
Yeah. Ian.
Yes. Okay, I've got a question here from Matt Horn down in Hawaii.
Hawaii.
This may be a silly question, but when you make an 8-yard kilt, when you cut the fabric off of the bolt, would you cut a 4-yard double width piece, splice it down the middle, and then sew it together to make 8 yards? Or would you just take the 8 yards of single width fabric you need and leave the other side still on the bolt? I'd have to imagine the first option, right? And we have a follow-up question that's related, so I'm going to share it now.
Okay.
Stuart Simpson wants to know, if you rip the double width in half and sew them together, where/how do you use the seam? Does that make the pleating job harder, having to hide something?
Okay, so let's start with the second question first. If you're going to splice fabric, when you have an 8-yard kilt, you, as a kilt maker, generally speaking, you order 4 yards of cloth double width, so essentially 55, 60 inches wide. And then you, if the kilt is 24 inches, you get half across the bottom, half across the top. You take that and you splice it, and you hide that splice in the depth of one of the pleats. Then you end up with 8 yards single width. So when you are splicing fabric in a kilt, you are essentially, what you want to do is hide that splice so nobody sees it. And frankly, if you're good, even the person who bought the kilt won't see it unless they're looking for it. Essentially, when you have a bit of the pattern, so here we have the pattern. If this is, let me put it this way. If this stripe right here, this last yellow stripe, if this is where I'm going to make the splice, then this is the pleat that I'm going to want to have this is the stripe I'm going to want as the face of the pleat. So that way this yellow stripe is hidden on the back side of that pleat, not inside the depth too far, not on the way back out to show the next face of the next pleat, but on the part that actually faces your body, not the part that faces the world. That way, there's, you from the outside won't see it, and even as the kilt owner, the only way you're going to see it is if you actually lift up all the pleats on the inside of the kilt and are looking for that splice on the inside.
It's possible to look for one and miss it, even.
Yeah. And if it's done well, yeah, you're right. You should essentially not be able to see it. It should be really, really, really well hidden. What was the other question?
Main was about, do you order 4 yards and do the splicing, or do you just take 8 yards off of one side of the bolt? And the short answer is, depends on where the bolt is.
Yeah.
I'll let you extrapolate.
Actually, let's bring in Mac for this.
Okay.
So Mac, you, Mr. Production Manager guy over there, puppeteering all of our kilt makers as a kilt maker yourself.
Dance for me.
Dance for me, kilt makers.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
You would have a mutiny of women
I know.
beating you.
I would. I'd be flogged out of the room.
So
Start calling you Molly.
So how do you decide what to do as far as kilt cutting?
So, especially if it's one of the bolts that we have in house, I'm trying to maximize the amount of cloth that we have. So, I'm cutting it double width. You don't know if you're what your next kilt's going to be when it comes in. Mm-hmm. Is it going to be another 5-yarder, or is it going to be a 5-yarder? Is it going to be an 8-yarder? Is there going to be a fly plate? Is there going to be?
So you're talking about wool, or you're talking
I'm
about
talking
PV?
wool.
Okay. Yeah. So we're talking about wool.
So I don't know what my next thing's going to be. So I'm trying to not have wastage on that. PV, we're not doing that as much. Majority of the time we're cutting them single width. Most of them we have another bolt, so if I do need to cut yardage off for a gray kilt or for a fly plate,
you have a nice clean
I
edge.
have a clean edge on that other bolt. So, there we're still trying to maximize the amount of cloth that we're using and not have as much wastage.
Yeah.
So that's typically how I do it if I'm cutting it off the bolt.
Now, if we have, if someone yesterday, somebody ordered 3 kilts in the same tartan, double width. I saw that come in. Jillian places our orders with the mills at this point. I was messaging her and I said, okay, so we have 2 kilts with the hips are 42 and 42 and a half or something like that. So for those 2, let's use those as essentially single width, because I'm going to cut one off of one side of the bolt, the other off of the other side of the bolt, and you don't have to worry about any wastage for the splice. Because when you're splicing a kilt, there's going to be some wastage because you have to match the pattern up on, as you connect it, you have to match the pattern up. So if even if it's just, if you luck out, you have, 2 inches of waste. If you have really, really bad luck, you may have, 6 inches of waste. So not wanting to waste the cloth is part of what drives the way we order things. When you have a kilt, the other kilt on the order, it was like, a 36-inch hip. So for a 5-yard kilt, so we ordered like 2.4 yards. And the other ones, we ordered 5.1 or something like that, because it was just over. Where we normally would have been a 5.2, 5.3 yard kilt, we can order a little bit less for the ones that are essentially single width cloth. So that saves a little bit of fabric in the way that we do it. Ian.
But yeah, so in that case, the third kilt is going to be spliced, but the other 2 aren't.
Yes, but I know Mac is going to hide that splice inside the depth of a pleat that no one's ever going to see, so I don't worry about, is this kilt and that kilt going to look the same as this one because this one has to be spliced? Nope, it'll be fine, frankly, unless you are looking for it. You know what you were looking for and you're looking for it, you're not going to know. I would venture to say that, at least of wool kilts, 95% of kilts, maybe because House of Egger does single width cloth now. So, okay, let's say 80% of kilts in the world are spliced, and no one knows it because it's hidden well. That's the point. The point is you aren't able to tell, you aren't able to see it.
If you could tell, it would be a bad strategy, and you'd rethink the weaving process.
Or it would be a bad kilt maker, in which case they'd go out of business because enough people would go, that's horrible, I'm not buying that.
Yeah.
So, indeed.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point there, especially when we're doing like large batches of orders, like on the 250s when we get those bolts in, and I'm cutting
Spark or Back to Nature or Purple Mountains.
I'm cutting those out in bulk, so I'm matching up. All right, this hip and this hip are the same size, or
and the same model.
This is going to be the same model, so I can cut 2 out at one time.
Basically, pair the orders.
And exactly, pair the orders, so that way when I give it to the kilt makers, I go, all right, these 2 orders are together, they're going to this person. These 2 orders are together, going to this person.
To this day, I know who's the other half of my Kilts and Culture kilt.
Totes Adorbs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's useless trivia.
I saw him today, actually.
Oh, lovely. David Barr?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, it's as far as business stuff concerned, it's about maximizing efficiency and minimizing waste. So either efficiency in not having to splice if you don't have to splice, because that takes time and effort and skill, and minimizing wastage of the fabrics, that you're not wasting money, so you can keep the price as low on things as possible. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right. Was that you? Or was that Mac?
That was Mac.
That was Mac? All right,
No, that was
Ian.
me. I'm sorry.
That was you. How dare you try to steal Mac's question. Mac.
All right, we've had quite a few people in the chat asking about this. When you're ordering an 8-yard kilt, again, we kind of touched on this a little earlier, but how do you pick? Do I to pleat it to a stripe or do I pleat it to a sett? What is the best way? How do I know that's going to? Which way is going to work best for that tartan?
Yes, and we had a similar question to that was put in advance, and they added the additional context of if I make the selection, kilt maker's choice. How do you? Yeah.
Yeah. On our website, we have 3. If you're ordering an 8-yard kilt, we have 3 options for pleating: to the stripe, to the sett, or let the kilt maker decide. I'll give you a little bit of insight. When the customer chooses let the kilt maker decide, usually we pleat it to the sett, because every kilt looks good pleated to the sett. The sett meaning the pattern itself, so that the pleats across the back of the kilt mimic the pattern on the front of the kilt. If it's pleated to the stripe, then you're picking a stripe that is the same on every single pleat. So if it was the Spark tartan that I have on here, if this one was pleated to the stripe, I would probably pick the yellow stripe, and this would be the center of every single pleat down the back of the kilt. Some people, I don't know why, it's a horrible choice, but I'll let it go, would pick like the blank section here or a stripe in the middle somewhere.
So when you pleat to the stripe, notably, you are overemphasizing some colors in the back and underemphasizing others. You always have all the colors because they all still exist horizontally, but you're deleting some of them vertically. And that can make for a very bold choice on the back. Sometimes it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other if there's not a lot of contrast to the tartan. But if there is a lot of contrast to the tartan, it can really give you a very distinctly different look in the back than in the front, which some people like and intentionally do that, but some people really like, they don't like it.
Yeah. So if you're not sure and you pick, hey, just kilt maker should decide. We don't want to pick something that we think that's a little bit, what's the word that I'm looking for? Bold, or something that's polarizing. Something that's either you're going to love it or you're going to hate it. I don't want to pick that for a stripe from an aspect of, if the customer hates it, I can't, unsew the kilt and just repleat it.
Not with that attitude.
Doesn't work like that. So we'll pick the safer option, and the safe option for every single tartan is pleating to the sett.
And I like it to the sett better anyway. Almost all of my kilts are pleated to the sett.
I went through phases where I was like,
That's fair too.
My first wool kilt was McGregor hunting, and I pleated that one to the stripe because it was a nice bold stripe, and there was a few kilts that I did to the stripe. But now
it can be quite sharp.
Yeah, typically I pleated to the sett. I had my first American Dream kilt to the stripe.
Yep.
My second one after I shrunk is to the sett. So yeah, it's
my follow-up to this is there are some tartans that we do lean to the stripe. So American Dream is one of them.
Now, I would say there are ways to tell if the tartan pattern that you are looking at will look better to this, or will look good to the stripe or bad to the stripe. And the way that I do it for myself, I've said this a billion times, is just squint at it. So take the Spark tartan right here. If you squint at the tartan that I am wearing and you look at it, that white stripe jumps out at you. If you pleat it to that white stripe, it will look good on the back of the kilt. If there is a bold stripe with lesser colors, so like Mackenzie, if it's a white stripe and bottle green or navy blue on either side of the bold stripe, and it's a really, really high contrast, then it will look great pleated to that stripe. If it's a very, very busy tartan and a lot of things going on, and when you squint at it, nothing really jumps out at you, then I would say it's probably going to be better pleated to the sett.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Good. He agrees.
But also I think if there's not a lot of high contrast in the tartan, it tends to decrease the riskiness of the decision. If it's not going to dramatically give you a different look in the back than in the front, then, like I think Old Scotland tweed. That one, not to say there isn't a difference, but because there's not a lot of high contrast, I don't think nobody's going to be like, oh my God, that looks terrible, to pleat it to the stripe.
But there's a bigger risk. Okay. It minimizes the risk and maximizes the risk of something else. If there's not a lot of contrast, then it maximizes the risk of the dreaded lawn chair effect.
Yes.
Where if you pleat a kilt to a no stripe. So, again, I'm going to lift my kilt apron about 897 times
There's an under apron,
today.
folks.
Yes.
For those who don't know.
So, if you look at this tartan and you have like this very busy, very bold section over here, and then this big section of black nothingness, the void, if you will. If you pleat it to this black section, then what you will end up with on the back of the kilt is black sections and a very, very bold horizontal bands of the yellow, gold / white striped sections. So it ends up looking like a 70s lawn chair that kind of fell apart, and you just have those bold stripes going horizontally across the back.
Yeah.
So for me, I would never choose the lawn chair effect on purpose, or the no stripe sections, or the wide section that essentially has nothing going on in it, because it looks very, very boring. And if it's a kilt with minimal contrast in things, then you kind of create that effect almost on accident.
Yeah.
So, yes. How do you feel about, now that I've not influenced or flavored your decision at all, or your discussion at all? How do you feel about the lawn chair effect or pleating to the no stripe?
Not desirable. I definitely do. If I'm pleating to the stripe, which is not something I prefer to do for my own kilts, I'm definitely going to pick bold stripe, the white stripe in this case. In the case of the Appalachian Folklore, I'm either going to pick the grays and the green or the orange and the black. I think this one's a little bit more of a toss-up as compared to yours.
Yeah.
There is a correct answer, but it's not as obviously wrong to do the other one.
Yeah. The only way that I will give like this much and only this much of a pass to people who want to pick the no stripe is if it's the no stripe followed by, and this part that's hidden, just barely hidden under the next pleat, is a bold contrast.
Yeah.
So if it's like, navy blue and then a white stripe. Okay, if you hide that white stripe when you walk, you get that flash of white, kind of sneaking out underneath the pleats as you walk, and it looks like it's dancing almost. Okay, fine, maybe a little bit. I still hate it, but I hate it a little bit less.
Okay. Or like if Buchanan, if you pleat to the yellow and you got the reds flashing out, or vice versa.
No, because that's still two like bold colors.
Yeah, it is.
So
I
I'd
wouldn't
say
like it for that one.
if you pleated to the green section with the red coming out or the yellow coming out, okay, fine, maybe kind of.
Tartans that are obvious for this kind of effect are few and far between, though.
Yes.
A lot of people try to do it, and they're trying to find ways to make it work on tartans that it just doesn't work on.
Yeah. Generally speaking, no. If it's to the stripe, bold contrast. If it's to the sett, it's any tartan. So, yes. So saith. So here endeth the lesson, and so saith us. Mac, was that you? Or was that Ian?
That was me.
That was
Okay,
Mac.
Ian, give me the next one.
Okay. David Morley, our friend from down in the Carolinas, wants to know. He says, I was at an event recently, and a vendor was trying to sell me a sporran strap. He claimed that it would wear less on the kilt and not pill the wool like a sporran chain. Any truth to this, or was he just trying to make a sale?
So, sporran strap versus chain. Hot debate, hot topic in the kilt community. Not really.
I don't think you can get those at Hot Topic.
Indeed. So he said, I'm at a festival. Mm-hmm. Okay. I would say I'm doing the Occam's razor here thing here. So if you're at a festival, there's a good chance it is a cheap sporran and or a cheap kilt. It is probably not a fully custom 8-yard wool kilt made in Scotland, to the highest standards kind of thing. So if you are buying, and there's essentially two levels of sporran chain. There's sporran chains which are good quality. Most of, or I'd venture to say all of the sporrans coming from Scotland are going to be good quality sporran chains that are made or offered with the kilt. Mm-hmm. There's also lesser quality sporran chains. What is the difference? Okay,
because a chain's a chain's a chain, right, Rocky?
Oh no, it's not, Ian. But wait, there's more. When you have a chain, there's something called a flat link chain, and it's different than like a normal chain. So a normal chain, think of one link and two links, and they kind of link like that. A flat link chain lays flat. So you're taking these two chains, twisting them, and it lays flat on a table, and you can run your fingers across it, and you feel just little tiny bumps. A better quality sporran chain will have soldered links, or links that are actually not soldered, but
welded.
Welded. Thank you. Welded links, and there won't be little tiny burrs sticking off of them. A lot of times when you're dealing with a sporran chain that is lesser quality or lesser price, they're not welded. It's just, the sporran links are just kind of, they're clamped closed, but they may open up a little bit, or they may not be 100% closed. There's a little tiny bit of space. And that little tiny bit of space is what rubs on the kilt. And it actually has an edge there versus no edge. When they're welded closed, there's no edge. Or there should be no edge, and there should be no burrs. If there's an edge or if there's burrs, it's going to rub on the surface of your kilt. And whether that's wool, it could actually pull at the wool. It could pill up a little bit over time. If it's a cheap kilt in like acrylic and a cheap chain rubbing on a cheap fabric, acrylic absolutely will pill. And that is a problem. And that is why vendors tend to say like, oh yes, this may pill, or this sporran chain could hurt it, because it's probably a cheap chain and or a cheap kilt. Now, he may also be trying to sell you a secondary thing to take more of your money. Sure, why not? But if it is a proper, nice quality, good quality sporran chain and a good quality kilt, generally speaking, that shouldn't happen. Now, I myself tend to wear a sporran strap. This sporran strap is probably 15 years old. This was actually made for me by Robert Pell, who used to own the company called Our Kilts. He did a lot of his own leather work. So this is a nice, soft, supple, and it has nice edges to it. It's they're what's it called when you it's not
Bevel?
but not bevel or buff the edges or whatever. So it's not like a hard 90-degree angle. Yeah. So if you buy a sporran strap that is harder, stiffer leather with a straight 90-degree cut, that could maybe rub on the kilt a little bit. And it really has more to do with the surface of the fabric in the kilt than it does to do with the chain itself. Is my gut. So if it's acrylic, it's probably going to pill. Anything rubbing over time on an acrylic kilt will pill the kilt. A repeated rubbing at a specific location will pill over time versus a proper worsted wool kilt.
Yeah.
Ian.
Worsted wool kilts definitely don't pill very easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I'm at about a little over 17 years as a kilt wearer, and I've only ever bought sporran chains from high-quality retailers, such as USAK Kilts. Never had pilling on a kilt. Not once.
What's that company again, Ian?
USAK Kilts.
Where can you find them online?
You can visit them at www.usakilts.com.
Interesting. I'll have to check them out. I've heard good things.
Yeah, me too. So, yeah, I think there's some truth to what he said, but it does depend on what you're buying.
Yeah.
So there's that. And that's going back to the straps thing. I'm wearing a strap today as well, but I do tend to go back and forth between straps and chains pretty readily. I don't fuss over it too hard. I don't think about it too much.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for even the backs of some types of leather products can be quite coarse and rough. I'm thinking of like you go to the Ren Fair, you see like leather bound embossed like sketchbooks. Oftentimes the outside is very nicely done and it's got embossing,
hide
but on the back it's rough. If you've got a very cheap sporran strap, that could be just as much of a problem as a cheap sporran chain. But good straps, good chains will not pill a wool 100% worsted wool kilt. Do you think woolen wool kilts would tend to have this issue?
Yes, because it's longer hair and it's puffier. They will have that issue as well.
Yeah.
PV has an anti-pill fiber technology. I will say I've had PV kilts for years and years and years. I don't really wear them as much anymore. I've become a wool snob. But I've had PV kilts pill over years, but not immediately, not like the 10th time it's been worn, but like the 60th time it's been worn and laundered and that kind of stuff.
Certainly not like acrylic in that way, where if you just stare at it long enough, it'll start pilling.
Yeah. Any synthetic fabric, typically speaking, will pill at some point.
Which, in fairness, PV is.
Yes.
But, it will take a lot longer.
Yeah, indeed. Mac.
More tightly woven fibers.
The only thing with the PV is depending on how it's washed.
Yes.
So if you do use fabric softener, that does help take that coating off, which then it does end up pilling a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So that would be my only
put it in the dryer.
asterisk to that comment.
Yep.
There are things you can do to damage the material that can increase the likelihood for sure.
Indeed. Excellent. I hope that helps. All right. Was that Mac? No, it was Ian. Mac.
All right. So we had quite a few people that are running down this journey here.
Don't stop believing.
Richard is one of the one I have up here, but there's other people in the comments. He's losing weight. It's that time of year where everyone's hitting the beach body and getting swole. So he needs
Marty just spit out his stuff.
He needs to have his kilt adjusted, his 8-yarder. He's like, how much can the buckles be adjusted on the kilt? And like when should he call her quits?
Too much.
Yeah.
Yes. I would say it depends on how much you're losing. If you're
depends on how the kilt was originally made too.
Yes. Our general rule of thumb, and this is a rule of thumb that we made up, but seems to hold reasonably true, is about 10%. So
down. I feel differently about up.
Okay. 10% down. Apparently not up.
Up to 2 inches up.
Yeah, that's fair. So 10% down. So if you are a 50-inch waist and you lose 5 inches, that's about the max down to 45-inch waist. It's about the max that we would prefer to be able to do.
And it's worth saying this is at best an estimate.
Yeah, indeed. These are all individual basis kind of things. For instance, I went from 240-ish to 175, so I lost 65 pounds. So I had to buy a new wardrobe. I should say, I had to have Casey and Mac make me a new wardrobe. It's not fun. It's not cheap. But I had to get all new t-shirts, all new polo shirts, all new dress shirts. I remember going to the Tartan Day Parade and the horror of getting dressed the morning of, and my dress shirt, I was swimming in it. I was just like, oh, son of a... I didn't think, oh, gee, this is going to be too big for me now. So it happens to the best of us. Now, it's a good thing. Embrace the suck. It sucks, but it's a reason to celebrate. You are going to be around longer. You're going to be healthier. Hopefully it's going to be a good thing in your life. So, embrace it. If you lose more than 10% in inches on your waist, get new stuff. Just deal with it. Sell the things that you have to defray the costs of a new kilt. But use this as a chance to celebrate. Don't think of it as, oh my God, now I have to buy all new stuff. Yeah, you do, but you're buying it for good reason. It's not a negative thing, it's a positive thing. Unfortunately, that comes along with a little bit of scratch that you got to spend, but it's a positive thing. And broadly speaking, when you sell a kilt, what I have found is that you can expect about half of the cost of the kilt for a used kilt.
That's fair.
As a broad brush thing. So whether you sell it on eBay, whether you find a kilt group that you can sell it in, or on Facebook Marketplace or something like that, you can generally expect about a 50% return. And if you've had the kilt for 5 years and worn it dozens of times, you've gotten your money's worth out of it. Now it's time to move on to a brand new kilt for your new, thinner self and pass that kilt on to somebody else. Can you adjust a kilt down 10 inches? Sure. Let's say we have to remake an entire kilt, and it's, you're ripping it apart stitch by stitch by stitch, and you want to save money and you want to remake an 8-yard kilt. Here's the problem. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to rip a kilt apart carefully and then put it back together. You're almost at the cost of a new kilt for redoing an entire old kilt in labor. Yes, you don't have to worry about the fabric costs, but you have to worry about the labor to tear it apart and then the labor to put it back together. And frankly, the money to dry clean it, the shipping back and forth and all that kind of thing. So if you're thinking about it purely in monetary terms, now I'm not talking about this was my great-grandfather's kilt and it's passed down in my family and every single male in my family has worn this for over 100 years and da-da-da. That's sentimental value. That's different. If you're talking strictly about it's a pretty pattern, I like it, but it's too big on me, then what I would say is this. Give yourself some karma points. Because if you take one kilt and rip it apart and put it back together, let's say it's going to cost you $300 to rip the thing apart and put it back together. Or you can sell it for $300 and put that $300 towards a new kilt. Now you have 2 kilts out in the world versus one kilt that's just made for you. So for karma points, you are supplying someone else who can't necessarily afford a brand new wool kilt made to their measurements. You're giving someone else the opportunity to have a good quality kilt at a cheaper price because they're buying it used and you get a brand new kilt and all that money off that they're helping you put towards it versus spending that money on adjusting the one kilt and just having one kilt out in the world. So spread the love, spread the joy, get more people in the world in kilts, get a new kilt, but pass that one on to somebody else and use that money to defray the cost of the new kilt.
And it could be that person's entry point into the lifestyle.
Yep.
And, the beginning of their addiction. And it could be their problem, too, and not just yours.
It's my master evil plan,
And
yes.
this is getting further down the tangent hole, but...
Rabbit hole. Tangent hole sounds creepy. Stay out of my tangent hole, Ian.
I'm sorry, I was just really good at calculus. Sometimes you can create a bond with a new person that way. I know I sold my County Antrim Crest kilt to, unfortunately I don't remember his name in the moment, but he's a Pennsylvania State Police officer, and he still comes up to us at Classic every year. He's like, oh, hey, remember I'm the guy, you sold me the kilt. Like, so yeah, we have that little, we didn't become best friends over it, though. I don't know, maybe become best friends with that guy. But, it's something we bond over every time we see each other.
Nice. He's going to be the pallbearer at your funeral,
Potentially.
Indeed.
Potentially.
Mac.
I was gonna say my only other thing. I agree with what you're saying, but there's something to be said to be hanging on to them, especially if you fluctuate a lot.
Oh yeah,
That's
where
fair.
where
it depends on your confidence and whether you're going to stay down.
Yeah, and a few years ago, I was 250. I got down to 200. So I had my my smaller
your fat
ones,
kilt and your small kilts.
and then I had the the daddy with the McDonald's body kilts later. So that way, when I go back and forth, I've got a range now where I can kind of go back and forth.
I was really in danger of not being able to wear my Pennsylvania State Seal kilt any longer at one point. I've gone back up a little bit in weight, so if it's okay now.
No, I agree. If you can afford to have, for while I was losing weight, I had my American Dream, and then I have a smaller American Dream. So I had a kilt for both. Exactly. So yes, there is a certain wisdom in it. Now, I am absolutely speaking from a position of privilege where it's just like, hey, I already own the cloth as the company. Mac, have Casey make this for us. Ha ha ha.
That helps.
Indeed. Or you as a kilt maker, Mac, have the ability to physically make the kilt and defray your own costs. If you're somebody out in the great wide world on the YouTubes, yes, you're having to pay for two separate things. But if money isn't the issue, then save a couple kilts. Even if you lose weight now and you replace your entire wardrobe and you don't care about money, I would say save a fat kilt or two for yourself just in case you do put weight back on and need a little bit. And this is advice for, same thing with pants or with shirts or anything. If you lose a bunch of weight, don't just get rid of your entire wardrobe. I have been on diets before and gone way down, and then over time kind of crept my way back up. And you don't want to have to, put on your dress pants and go, these are too snug. Honey, we have to stop at the store before we go to the thing because I need to buy pants.
To buy the thing that I used to have in the right size.
Exactly. So I would say hedge your bets a little bit if you're on a weight loss journey or a weight gain journey. If you're happily married now and she is a great cook. So, indeed, yes, that's my long-winded answer for that.
So you're saying you're not happily married?
You said that, not me. I would never say that.
Fair enough.
Indeed. I fear my wife too much. All right.
You should.
Ian, next question.
Do we want to do a related but distinctly different question, or do we want an entirely different question?
Sure.
I'm broken here. Okay. We'll get into... we've got a pair of related questions to each other, not to the last thing. So Lonnie Oglesby wants to know, does hemming a wool kilt affect the swing? If so, is it significant enough to ruin the swag of an 8-yard kilt? And Matt Horn wants to know, how much of a hem is typically on the bottom of a tweed kilt?
Sure.
Interesting that he specifically called out tweed kilts.
Yes. I would say he probably called out tweed kilts because most tweed, not like tartan tweed, a lot of times they're actually woven with tuck and selvage, but most tweed kilts have a lino selvage and they are needed to be hemmed, or it's a herringbone pattern that runs the wrong direction, so they have to be spliced multiple times and then therefore hemmed across the bottom because it's a cut edge.
And you can't just request to not have it hemmed.
Yes. If you must hem a kilt, I would say the ideal hem in a kilt is 1.5 to 2 inches, somewhere in there. If you get
Goldilocks zone.
It's the Goldilocks zone, exactly. If you have a kilt that is a 1/2 inch too short and you need to hem it, nope, don't hem it, just hike it up. If it's 3 inches, 4 inches too long, don't just hem it unless you're in a pipe band and you want to make sure you can drop the hem at some point later on. I would say cut it and hem it if it's 4 inches. I wouldn't just hem 4 inches for yourself forever. There's a little bit of a Goldilocks zone with hemming a kilt. It's never ideal. Does it affect... It depends on the weight of the cloth, the type of cloth, and a bunch of different factors. But does it affect an 8-yard kilt? Yes and no. If it is a, let's say we're talking about 13-ounce or 16-ounce worsted wool tartan cloth.
Which is what most kilts are made from.
Most kilts are made from, correct. So, in that instance, if you hem a kilt a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, just a little bit, and you just have to hem it up just because it's a touch too long, what ends up happening is the bottom, the very, very bottom of the kilt, you are doubling the thickness. Anytime you hem it, a kilt, you're doubling the thickness. And if it's just that much, it ends up, the pleats tend to want to kick out at the bottom.
It's bubbling a little bit.
Yeah, it's bubbling. It's not bringing it, further back up into the kilt. It's just a tiny bit.
You're not just doubling your pleasure and doubling your fun.
Yeah, the double mint gum thing. I get it. No, but the pleats at the bottom tend to kick out across the back of the kilt, especially if it's a 16-ounce, because it may not want to hang flat, and you have to really, really get in there with the iron and pressure the heck out of it to get it to lay flat. So
beat it like it owes you money.
Exactly. Across the... like a red-headed stepchild. Across the back of the kilt, you want it to lay flat. So from the bottom of the fill to the very, very bottom, it should be a nice flat appearance. And what ends up happening if it's only a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inches is it tends to kick out kind of on the bottom edge. Going to the opposite extreme of like a 4-inch hem, so it's a really, really, really deep hem, it's too much. And it has like a weird bubble at the bottom of the kilt.
It's creating a lot of unnecessary weight in your kilt too.
Yep. So the Goldilocks zone is 100% the 1.5 to 2 inch kind of zone where it's just it's coming up enough that it wants to lay flat. There's enough travel back up inside the pleats that it's not trying to have all the pleats kick open, but it's not going so far up the back of the kilt that it's too much fabric or feels weird.
And notably, wow, I completely lost my train of thought.
That was 100% notable. I am better for noting that. So yeah, I would absolutely say. Go ahead.
I remember where I was going to go with it. Notably, if you're going to hem it up 4 inches or more, you're changing other choices that were made about that kilt, like the fell length. So your fell length is generally about 1/3 of your overall length of the kilt. So if I've set that way and you hem it up 4 inches, the bottom of the fell is going to be much lower than is ideal.
But Ian,
relative to your body.
But Ian, why does the bottom of the fill matter for the back of the kilt? So if I had a 24-inch kilt and I'm 6 foot tall and I pass it down to my son, who I have to hem 4 inches off of, why does that 8-inch fill, which is 1/3 the length of 24, matter for my son?
So you basically what you want is that hem to end right at the widest part of your body. So for somebody whose hips are larger than their waist, which isn't everybody, in fairness, it's hitting basically right at the widest part of your buttocks and then dropping straight down from there. So you can get some weirdness to how the kilt hangs if you don't have that quite dialed in.
If it goes, yes.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if the fill, which is the sewn down portion, goes from the top of the kilt to the widest part of your butt. If you shorten the bottom because the person is shorter, then let's say that 8-inch fill should really be a 7-inch fill. Now it's going beyond the widest part of your butt. When you sit down, your butt expands a little bit and it goes out under the widest part of the fill. If the fill goes down beyond the widest part of your butt, when you're sitting and expanding, you're putting too much pressure on the bottom of those pleats, and what will tend to happen is you're going to get pop stitches and it's going to rip the bottom of the fill and the pleats will kind of tear up. Or the other weirdness that it'll look is as you're wearing the kilt, it's going to look like a mini skirt that hugs your body, and it hugs it weird because it's kind of like outlining the, not just going to the widest part of you and going straight down. It's going to look like it's kind of like hugging your butt, which can look weird and it's prone to split the pleats more because
Hadn't
it's
thought of
going
it that
down
way.
beyond the bottom. Yep.
Notably, though, it's not the end of the world to have a hem. In the case you're describing, specifically the father handed down to the son, if you think that son is going to continue to grow and you're going to want to let that hem out and he can still wear it,
Sure.
it's a good temporary solution.
Yeah.
Or if you got a great deal on like a $800, 8-yard hand-stitched kilt on eBay for $80 and you spent, a small amount to have it hemmed, you got a good deal out of the whole thing. So and I wouldn't panic too much about the swish and the sway and the swag of it all, to Lonnie's original question. You still got a good deal and didn't spend $800.
Yeah, and
So-
there are some weights of fabric, touching on the weight kind of thing. There are some weights or types of fabric
Yeah. that
that will hem better than others. So, on the hell no, we won't go. And well, I shouldn't say that way. On the more difficult to hem are tweeds, especially tweeds that are a little softer.
Spongier.
Spongier, like Martin Mills tweeds or like the Loch Heron jacket, suiting fabric kind of tweeds, or jacket fabric kind of tweeds, which are a little spongier and don't hold a pleat or a crease quite as nice. They're a little bit more difficult to hem. On the other end of the scale, 11-ounce fabric. If you have an 8-yard kilt and it's you want bill of the borders and it's only available in 10-ounce or 11-ounce fabric from Loch Heron, then I would absolutely say, a hem is not necessarily a bad thing because it adds a little bit more weight to the bottom of the kilt to help with the swing. And if you look at like Highland dancers and that kind of thing, a lot of times dancers' kilts are lighter weight fabric for heat issues, but they are also hemmed because they want a little bit more weight to the bottom of the kilt, and that helps with the bouncing of the pleats.
And notably, you might need to have a hem on 11-ounce cloth sometimes, because
Yes.
it doesn't always have a tuck-in selvage that is appropriate for the bottom edge of a kilt, so you do hem up.
Yeah, that's true as well.
So sometimes it might not be ideal, but it is the better of the
The lesser of
options.
two evils.
Sometimes with PV kilts, we do have to hem them because the edges come in just in a way that they aren't usable as the bottom edge of a kilt.
Yeah. That's true.
Either because it was just made with you call it lino
Lino
selvage.
selvage. Yeah, lino edge.
So it kind of has a little bit of a fringed type of a look to it, which isn't ideal for the bottom of a kilt. So we do hem them up. I have a PV kilt that's hemmed up, and it actually doesn't bother me. Like, I'm a little bit of a snob about hems, and I don't like them, and I don't want a kilt with one. But when I put it on, I don't think about it. It doesn't bother me.
You think about it while you're putting it on, but as soon as you put it on, you forget about it.
Yeah. Or sometimes just the edge wasn't made successfully, and we end up having to hem it.
Yeah, that's fair as well. Cool.
Yep.
Mr. Mack.
Alrighty, so we have Brennan asking, have we ever offered alternative pleating options, or have we ever made any kilts in alternative pleating options, like a kingussie or reverse kingussie, box pleats, those along those lines?
Yeah. So, yeah, have we done it? Yes. Do we like it? Varying degrees. So there's the first thing is box pleating kilt. So a box pleating kilt, we actually just started offering those on the website. We've done those for years. Yes, they're available. A box pleat, it looks like a Z and a 2 back to back. So the face of the pleat is going to be about 2 inches wide, and you have at the knife edge on each side of the pleat, versus a regular kilt, which is just a knife pleated kilt where you have the edge on one side and all the pleats wrap the same direction. In a box pleated kilt, each pleat wraps both directions. In a kingussie style pleated kilt, there's historical precedence for this. It's spelled kingussie, but it's pronounced kingussie. In a kingussie style kilt, you actually have the pleats knife pleated, wrap towards the front, and in the center of the back, you have one wide box pleat running down the center of the back, and all the pleats wrap around towards the front. In a reverse kingussie pleat, it's pleated like a utilikilt. Utilikilt uses reverse kingussie pleating in all their kilts, where the left-hand side pleats to the left, and the right-hand side, my right, pleats to the right. So they all wrap, and then they meet at a reverse box plate in the back, dead center of the back. So these are different pleating styles other than the standard knife pleating kilt. There's also military box pleating kilt, which is a little bit twist on a box plate. I have made I've made a couple reverse kingussie kilts. Made a couple box pleated kilts. I don't like regular kingussies because you end up with, depending on the depth of the pleats, a bunch of fabric kind of bunching up in the center of the back, and you have to kind of fold it in on itself and fold it, like get origami swans in the center back to get the box plate just so. Have I considered offering that as a standard thing? No, not really. It's a pain in the butt.
We've considered it. We just came up with the answer no.
We've considered it. We decided no. Exactly. Yes, the box-pleated kilt, yes, we can do. Yes, we do. We actually offer that on the website.
do.
98% of kilts that are out in the world today are just standard knife pleating kilts, or knife pleated kilts. But there are alternative styles. Most people don't do them, don't understand there's different styles, and it's a very artisanal thing. Yes.
Like a military box plate kilt requires a lot of follow-up ironing maintenance too.
Yes, that's 100%.
I've heard a few folks who've gotten them elsewhere, and they have a little bit of buyer's remorse on that front.
So, a military box pleated kilt. It's a box pleated kilt, meaning there's a knife edge on each side, but one side goes much, much, much deeper than the other, because it's called a military box plate because British military, used to. I think maybe some still do, but most of them, some of them used to have military box pleating kilts, which is the face of the pleat is 3/4 of an inch wide, and one side goes in 3/4 of an inch and goes way back. The other side just goes way back. In theory, that's cool and neat and different. Here's the problem where reality hits and smacks you in the face like a brick. You've worn this kilt out 3 times, 4 times, and you're just like, oh, I went to a festival, sweated in it. It's a really, really neat kilt. I love it, but now it's dirty. I have to go get it dry cleaned. Or I have to wet wash this kilt, and all the pleats come out. Now, good luck. When you take this kilt to a dry cleaner,
Hurts thinking about it.
99.999% of dry cleaners, unless they live in a town with a kilt company who tells them how to do it, will not know what to do with a military box-pleated kilt. They're just going to get this thing through the system as fast as possible. So they're going to, throw it in the big old dry cleaning drum, come out, and then they're going to put it in a big clamshell press, ka-chunk, and do the pleating all in one shot. They are not going to sit there and baste all of these pleats, 4 rows of basting across the back of the kilt just so that they are perfect. They are not going to take the time to put 6 pins down every single pleat to baste it in a big clamshell so it's just so. They're going to go, okay, pleats go one direction, boom, 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 ka-chunk, done. And they call it permanent pressing for a reason. It is permanent. Undoing the ka-chunk is a big pain in the butt, and it will get screwed up. The number of people, well, there's not that many because there's not many box plates, or military box plates, but the number of people over the years who have brought in, and Max over there shaking his head, the number of people who have brought in a military box plated kilt and said, hey, I brought this to a dry cleaner and they screwed it up. Can you fix it? It's, if we've seen a dozen military box-pleated kilts go out, we've seen 10 of them come back screwed up. So it's not something that is common. And the less common something is, the less people know how to deal with that thing. And the maintenance on them over time becomes a nightmare. And then you end up with essentially a knife-plated kilt with a wonky bit right at the bottom of the fell because the dry cleaner doesn't know what they're doing and how to treat the thing. So think twice before getting a military box-pleated kilt.
And doing it right if they're charging you an appropriate amount for their time, would be dramatic.
Yeah. I would guess...
If they're charging $50, they're not charging enough.
$50 just for pressing it.
Yeah, but if you're talking about the basting and all that other stuff, doing it proper.
Yeah, it's a lot of time. It's probably a half hour to an hour, depending on your speed, of time to get the thing set ready for the 3 seconds of ka-chunk. Mac, do you have any?
I mean, I've added to a kilt that had military box, and it takes a lot of planning, a lot of basting stitches to get that in so it stays in right, and then making sure you're pressing it hard on top of it. But yeah, I've seen multiple where it's come back from a dry cleaner, and now they're all knife edge pleats now, and that you have that hard twist right at the that fell line. Going back a half step here to your kingussie kilts that you've done. Now those have a lot more planning involved as far as the making how everything meets in the back.
Yes, the reverse kingussie ones. I've only made reverse kingussie.
Yes.
So where the pleats meet in the center of the back. Yes, it's there's more planning, but it's not that big of a deal. The only way that you have to worry about planning it is when you're marking out the fabric for the kilt. Essentially, in the center back, you're just skipping one pleat. So if you're doing something to the sett, doing it to the stripe is easier because you skip that stripe.
That's kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah, if you're doing it to the sett, then you have to have an even number of pleats, which is generally a no-no when you're pleating a kilt. An even number, and like if I was doing this one again, lifting the kilt, middle of the show. So if I was doing this one and I was going to have 2 pleats in this black section, then I would do one black pleat to the left and one black pleat to the right, and then behind that is essentially the black section as well. So it's a double deep pleat because you have one side going that way, one side going that way.
Yeah, so you couldn't have that white stripe as a center point in the back.
Correct.
And the other thing you got to be concerned about with those, which is you're losing if you do lose weight and everything has to be shifted. Now that center point is now off to the side, one direction or the other, or even if you expand, it's going to go the other way. So that is another thing to consider with those. It's you settle that at your weight. But
in whether you're making a military box pleat or a reverse kingussie pleat kilt, you essentially make it, you sew it essentially the same way that you do a regular kilt. The tweaking is in the ironing, and in the basting. So for like a reverse kingussie pleat, you end up pleating it, and then essentially skipping one, so you have one super deep pleat, and you continue pleating all the way to the end. And then when you go to iron it, you fold half the pleats this direction, half the pleats this direction, and the center back pleat you kind of spread out so it's split and it's going both directions. So it's not that big of a deal. It just takes a lot more attention to detail and remembering what you're doing, because if you're somebody who makes knife-bladed kilts, 7 days a week, and now all of a sudden you have to do something different, you go on autopilot and you screw it up.
You have to create a solid plan from the start and execute it well.
Yes, and mark everything out to help yourself out.
With a knife pleated, you have a little bit more flexibility to add one or lose a pleat potentially.
Yep.
But yeah, you're out of luck on the kingussie.
Yep.
Either version.
Indeed. All right, that was you, and
we're gonna keep going.
Yep, we're gonna do 2 more.
Okay. All right, let's do a question from Dean Morris. What fabric do you prefer for the lining? I find cotton stays in place once you're buckled in, and satiny fabric is easier to shift after getting buckled in. There's also the issue of absorbing perspiration.
Satiny fabric.
Satiny.
Okay. 100% cotton lining for a kilt. Period. Almost end of discussion. But I'll continue speaking. So I would say
you lie.
Cotton. We use ours isn't brushed, is it? No. Because brushed is generally a little bit thicker, heavier weight.
A little bit thicker, and it also has like a gray. It'll have a gray tint. You'll be able to see the tool lines in it better. We have polished cotton, but it's a medium weight. I think it's 7.5 ounces is our cotton that we use. You can use a brushed cotton, which has specific advantages of grabbing a little bit more. So the biggest issue in my mind, there's 2 issues when picking the lining of a kilt. One is absorption of moisture, so sweat,
And the second one is making sure that the kilt doesn't drop. You don't want your kilt dropping around your ankles as you're wearing it. So the tightness of the kilt grabbing the shirt or gripping the shirt is, I won't say paramount, but it's key for selecting a lining fabric. So a brushed cotton is good for grippiness, if you will, generally against a cotton shirt or a dress shirt or something like that. It's bad because it's a little bit thicker, so it may trap a little bit more heat. But it's still a reasonable solution. Alternatively, some kilt companies use a really lightweight, like a 4.5 or 5 ounce maximum kind of a plain weave fabric for cotton fabric, generally speaking, for the liner of a kilt. We use 7.5 ounce fabric, and I still swear by that. I love it the most. It's a twill weave, and it's polished cotton, but it's good stuff. Satin, hell no. I would never use satin or taffeta or anything like that for the lining of a kilt, because it doesn't do either of the things. It does not breathe, so you're going to sweat more. It doesn't absorb moisture well.
Part of what it's doing there is protecting the wool of your kilt.
Yeah. Or absorbing some of the moisture so that it doesn't go into the kilt itself.
That's what I'm saying.
And it's slipperier than cotton, so it won't generally grab your shirt in the same way, or your underwear or whatever, to help hold the kilt up. So no, I would never. I can't imagine a scenario that anyone would put that. It's cheaper, but that's about it.
The one advantage I could see it for is people with limited mobility, especially if they're very large. You can spin the kilt to do your strap, spin the kilt to do your other strap, but that's only the moment when you're putting it on.
Yeah, no.
So I don't think there's enough advantage there to lose all those other advantages to the cotton.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Pakistani kilts have satin lining. That's the only time I've seen it in a kilt.
Yeah, but isn't typically theirs more of a half moon?
Half moon?
Yes.
They're just more like a half circle.
The ones that I have seen, they do a. It's pointless though, and it's take this for what it's worth. Coming from a guy who makes kilts, wool snob, makes kilts himself. The lining that I've seen in the cheaper kilts like that are satin or taffeta, it serves zero purpose. The point of a lining in a kilt is because, generally speaking, you are covering up all the scalloped out pleats and the reinforcement, the horsehair canvas on the inside, all the stuff that is inside the guts of a kilt that a kilt maker should be doing in a proper kilt. It's covered up with a lining because it makes it look nice. And it has the added advantage of it helps to, grab the shirt. The ones that I've seen that are satin or taffeta or whatever in a cheap kilt are just kind of sewn in there because a kilt is supposed to have a lining. So they put it in, but they're not scalloping out all the fabric, and they're not doing anything else on the inside.
And if you're not scalloping out the fabric.
So what the hell's the point?
Yeah.
So, frankly speaking, I would just cut it the hell out. And they don't even sew it down on the bottom. I've seen them where it's just they put it in and then it flips up. So when the person's wearing it, it ends up ruching itself up during the day, and it's almost peeking out of the hello, what's the
Elroy?
Kilroy, yeah, exactly, the Kilroy across the top of the kilt band on the back. So no, hell no, we won't go there. So if you have a kilt and it's not sewn on the bottom and it's taffeta or something like that, and and it's not covering up any nastiness underneath the underside of the kilt, I would actually just cut it out and be done with it. Period.
Now, there's somebody just put in the comments also said about what about linen? We have used linen. This one has linen in it.
Yep.
I know we've done some with yours that have done have had linen in, and you also have. Now, going back in time, you have bay being used, which is like a wool, as a liner too. Mm-hmm. So you do have other things other than cotton that has historically been used, but bay is, again, it's going to be hotter. It's going to be, so I understand where the cotton came in. Money, yes, cotton's a lot cheaper, so it also helps there too. So
Yep.
Just there's other alternatives out there
Yeah.
than just cotton.
I have 6 or 8 kilts with linen as the lining in the kilt. Generally, it's because, in my instance, it's I got a good price on linen. Or like I went down to Fabrico in Philadelphia, or I during the pandemic, I went and bought a ton of fabric over at a huge warehouse over in Jersey, and he had a roll of cheap linen. He's like, "Hey, I'm selling you all these different things. Do you want this? And do you want this? Do you want this?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'll take that. I'll take that. I'll take that." Kid in the candy store. So
But
there's
we were the candy store.
yes, indeed. But no, linen is fine for the inside of a kilt. Anything that's a natural material, like linen, like cotton, wool to a degree, but it's going to be more expensive and generally a little bit warmer. I love all the bamboo would make a great kilt lining, and it's actually
It had the
cool.
right texture to it.
Yeah.
What was the word he always used with his linen? It was more luxurious.
Luxurious, yes, luxurious linen.
Questionable, but okay.
Yes. I would love to have like old linen tablecloths that have been washed like 50 times, 100 times, so they have like that slight little bit of nap to it. They're nice and soft and kind of like drape real. That's actually what I would love for.
Start thrifting.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
Or I mean, honestly, we should just go to like one of these like catering job companies, like where they're washing these all the time and they're ready to retire them and bring in new
They
ones.
starch them.
They starch them, and they're
okay.
generally poly
Oh yeah, that's fair.
for
That's fair.
stain resistance matters.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. High-end catering.
So
Luxurious.
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 So why don't we offer a billion different options for the liner inside a kilt? It's too difficult to get a billion different options and and source them reliably.
Source
Store
them all.
Store them all, which is it's a problem. It's not that big of a problem as reliable sourcing. So if we offered, Transformers, bed sheet looking, lining at a kilt, I can't get that every single time. And as soon as put it up, it's out of stock, and then but that's what I wanted. Nope.
And at the end of the day, you don't see it.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you don't
see it. Nobody else does.
Yeah, and the lining for a company like us, the ability to get things consistency without delays, without having to call the place 100 times and have any delays that we definitely don't have at any of them else right now. Without the ability to have consistency of products and not rebuild the supply chain every other week, that is paramount because that all adds to the cost of the kilts. So. Nope. That's why we have black as the option, because we have a great source in the U.S. where we can get the perfect, for us, fabric for the liners of our kilts. We've never had complaints about it. We've never had issues with the cloth. Boom. Done.
That's
All
been
right.
the same for years and years and
Yeah,
years.
we've used that same company for as long as we've been putting linings in kilts. Yeah. So, yeah. Excellent. Good question. Was that you, Mac?
That was me.
That was Ian. Mac, give me one more from you, sir.
Alrighty. Colton asks, does it look strange to wear a piper's sporran if you aren't piping or at an event where you would play? Or would buying a different sporran be easier?
Assuming that this is a pre-buy decision, then yes, buying a different one would
Buying
inherently be
or
easier.
getting another one. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of horse. I'm assuming by piper sporran he means horsehair sporran.
I would.
Yeah.
That's where I'm
Okay.
assuming.
A piper's
as well.
dress sporran wouldn't be the end of the world.
Piper
if you
hunting
like
dress
that.
sporran,
Yeah,
kind of, like a dress sporran, but with the leather leaves as opposed to
Sure,
the tassels.
if you like that, fine.
Yeah, it's long hair sporrans. So horsehair, goat hair. Basically big long.
Full length of your apron.
Yeah, 18 inches or so long. It was popular during Victorian times. It's not really a thing now outside of bagpipe bands, outside of those who are trying to dress historical and want a throwback kind of look.
Yeah, that's a very different kind of
So
thing.
it's, specifically horsehair has such a strong visual now with pipe bands. I wouldn't do it. I'd wear something else.
I have a weird reason why I would never wear a horsehair sporran. Every time you go out in a kilt, just in public, in the general population, if you will, and you run into the muggles, ask, "Oh, are you in a pipe band?" My answer is always, "No, I'm not in a pipe band." But if you're wearing a very pipe band specific item, sometimes we get people who get a military doublet just because they love that look. I'm like, if you're not in a pipe band, you just look like you're in a pipe band, though.
Yeah.
More so than wearing a kilt does.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that are pretty unique to the regimental, also specifically regimental pipe band world, and copying those, is it fair game? I guess,
Sure.
but I wouldn't.
Yeah.
You just look like you're in a pipe. And frankly, I know Colton. If I see him if I run into him and he's wearing a horsehair sporran, I'm like, oh, did you start playing the pipes?
Yeah. Yeah. Nah, not my
Yeah.
favorite. All right, that was a quick one. Ian, give me one more.
Sure. I've got a question here from Knut Swainson. Hope I said your name right. I'm so sorry if I got it wrong. When wearing the kilt casually, is it okay to wear a fisherman's beanie or no turn back beanie? I've heard the shorter the bill, the better. But what about no bill?
So beanie, fisherman's beanie, like turn back kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'll even lump in yarmulkes. Or a pontiff's hat, like a pope hat. There you go. No bill on that.
I'm going to go hard on the don't wear a
come
pontiff's
on.
hat with a kilt, unless you are literally the Pope. It'd be cool to see the Pope in a kilt.
Cardinal.
Maybe that's our next
All right.
Vox Pop is,
Fair.
Pope in a kilt. What kilt will we put?
Yes. So,
I'm really having fun breaking Marty.
I was gonna say, is this the episode? How many times can we break Marty?
yes. So, the hats and kilts. I have a form follows function mentality about it. I only wear beanies essentially in the winter because that's when my head is coldest and needs most insulation, and or my ears. Summer, I'll still wear, this is a scally cap, and it's wool, but it is not, what's the pillowy kind of thing? Quilted. It's not quilted. Yes, it's not kilted. It's not quilted. And it's wool, but I'll still wear this in there in the summer because my ears are nice and cool. During the winter, I wear these less on the way into the office because I want my ears covered. My ears get cold. So, yeah, if form follows function. If your head is cold, if you are follically challenged, like I am follically challenged, then yes, 100% a beanie is fine. Yeah, I have no problems with beanies with kilts. Ian.
You have a 2-minute commute, you baby.
Wow.
And it's even worse than that because I have remote start on the car. So remote start, nice and warm. I have like 15 feet to walk, and then I park closest to the back door, so I have another 15 feet to walk.
Yeah, I'm not follically challenged, and I tend to run hot and sweaty, so I don't wear beanies a lot. But yeah, in the winter when it's especially cold, absolutely throwing on a beanie. Form follows function, as you said. Wear a beanie if it makes sense. Now, some people do wear these types of beanies just as a fashion choice. Maybe not quite year-round, but darn close. You said casually, so I think it's fair game if that fits your look. I think, for some reason, I think the really scrawny guys pull this look off better than larger guys do.
Jace.
Actually, I don't think I feel that way about Jace specifically. But I'm like... Yeah, I just think like a very hipstery kind of a look. If it fits your personal style and your body type, I say go for it. I don't think it just works great as just a strictly fashion item for somebody my size or somebody with my hairstyle.
I don't think beanies look bad on bigger guys. Like if it's a small beanie and the beanie looks like a yarmulke because you are that size,
Well, yes.
then maybe yes, it looks a little odd.
I mean, I have a hard time finding beanies big enough for my big stinking head. They don't stretch that much. I buy the ones that are supposed to be folded down and don't fold them down, and they're just barely enough to cover my ears.
I am a beanie connoisseur, and I have multiple beanies, and finding the perfect beanie is a challenge. There are some beanies that are wider than others, and some that are annoyingly snug or tight. So I have an average size head. My hats are all either medium or large, like 58 centimeters, that kind of thing. So I'm right square up the middle. I have some beanies that are more restrictive and snug, and that annoys, but you take it off and you have the lines running around the outside of your head across your forehead. And then there's others that are just like loose and just kind of like this, they sit like they blow off kind of loose. So if I find a beanie that I am rejecting because it is too loose, I will pass it on to you.
Okay, appreciate it.
My neighbor gave me a Germany one, and it's like it's way too loose, so it bugs the heck out of me.
Yeah. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, I'm the guy. I played football in middle school, and when we were there dishing out uniforms, they had one helmet in the largest size that they hadn't even used in 5 years. And it turned out there was 2 guys that year, me and another kid who needed it. And the coach spent a day or 2 fretting over how he was going to find a way for us to share the helmet and only each play one at a time. Thankfully, another middle school in our district had one that they weren't using because nobody in middle school's head that big. And we ended up both being able to have a helmet.
I will leave all jokes about your big head aside, Ian. Now, here's my question, and I'll bring Mac in for this as well. Beanie with the fold up on the bottom of the beanie, or just straight down to the bottom? Preference.
I'm going to sidestep and go Jeep cap.
Jeep cap?
No, can't sidestep.
Oh, I'm sidestepping.
No, all right. That doesn't count. Take them off screen.
Explain for the audience what a Jeep cap is, just in case I know what this is, but just in case they don't know what
like
what is a
radar
Jeep cap?
from
So think
like
of
a little tiny
of,
brim.
Think of little tiny. It's the same knit material,
Okay.
but just a shorter brim.
Yeah,
it does
yeah.
have a
Gotcha. Never heard it called that before.
That they were World War II. They were
I have one of those.
Yeah.
They were worn under helmets a lot, so they can be folded down on the sides as well. But
Gotcha.
I used to wear my Jeep cap a lot,
Okay.
so I usually go that route
Okay.
over and over again. But most of my regular beanies are fold up.
Okay. On purpose, or because that's the style you prefer?
Because I usually end up sweating like a stuck pig and end up ripping it off my head anyway.
Okay. Ian, so fold up or straight down?
Like I said, there have been times where I've gotten one and on the shelf at the store, on the hook or whatever, it was clearly folded up. I'm like, nope, it'll stop here. So I'm unfolding it just to get it over my darn ears so that the logo, the Carhartt logo or whatever it is
It's now the back side of the logo. Yeah.
So it's on my forehead and scratching, so I have to turn it around backwards too.
Okay. See, I'm being follically challenged. I have less bulk on my head and an average size head, so I guess that almost makes it small because I don't have hair. Maybe, I don't know. But I like the straight down period. The only problem I have is it's sometimes they're too far down, and it's like it comes down to like over here. It's finding the perfect beanie is it's. I feel like what's his face from the suicide Brad Muir from the Suicidal Tendencies videos where it's like right over the eyes. Yes.
The other challenge I have as a long-haired guy is where even if I find a hat that's perfect for me with my hair down the way it is now, if I'm trying to get it up in a bun and then get a hat on, forget about it. Never mind.
Okay.
Ain't working.
All right. Beanies. That's why you come here. I'm not talking about tartans and kilts. For beanies. In the summer. The hell asked us about beanies in the summer? Why are we talking about this? Because we love beanies. Beanies are good stuff. All right. Throw up the question of the day again, because we forgot to mention it before when we did it. So, from the question earlier in the show, what is the reason you started wearing the kilt? Was it for heritage? Was it because it's fashion choice? Was it for confidence, to either boost your own confidence, or because you just have a brimming abundance of confidence? Let me know in the comments why you started wearing a kilt.
Maybe you were a groomsman in a wedding, or you joined a band.
Yes.
Get after it.
Those things. Indeed. All right, boys and girls, thank you for joining us. Remember, we are having a party June 28th here in the shop, premiering or sneak previewing or something, showing the movie about Celtic festivals and Celtic heritage. Come check it out. Come visit us. If you can't, so sorry, so sad, you're going to miss it. But July 9th comes out to the general public.
It's the best opportunity you have to talk to other kilt wearers while you visit the shop and to see more of the shop than just the store.
Can I end the show?
Yes, you may.
Okay.
I'll allow it.
All right, thank you. So nice of you. Kind. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. Until next time, Slán Java. Thank you for watching with us, guys. We appreciate you very much. If you want to see bite-sized pieces of Celtic and kilt-related content, we have an entire channel dedicated to clips of the show. Go check out the Kilts and Culture clip channel, which will be linked right about here if Eric did his job and put it in the video.